Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. It's so good to see all of you guys on this beautiful Tuesday. Wow, it is April 28th, 2026. We are live. Nice to see all of you guys joining with me today. We have a great segment to get to today. All three of them are really going to be something to be considered. I just want to thank all of you guys for joining on Kick, Rumble, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. Good to see all of you guys back here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps to be able to reach more people and in order to help us grow. That's one of the reasons why. And I think a lot of times we don't harp on this, but because of the YouTube algorithm gods, right? They determine that in order for us to be able to reach more people, in order to cover these topics and be able to support the channel, likes are very appreciated and very important, as well as subscribing too. So if you guys have not already, you guys can also do that as well. And sharing the video helps a lot as well. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I write any articles, have any clips uploaded, or go live just like this. So you guys have that available for you as well. Also, if you guys would like to ask me a question, you can do it through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. This gives you the ability to ask me a question and I give you a video response or to react to any videos that you find interesting as well. So thank you so very much to everybody. Good to see everybody that's watching on the channel. Let's go into the comments and say our hellos, our salutations, our welcomes to every single one of you. First, we have Bryce coming in saying, good afternoon, JB and comrades. Good to see you, Bryce. Nice to have you in here as well. CBC voter coming in saying, happy Tuesday at JB. Yes, good to see you as well, CBC voter, up in the house. We have Edward coming in saying, hi, JB. What's your take on the Michael Jackson flick? Have you seen it? No, I have not. I'm broke. I would love to see it. But I will say this. From hearing the reviews of people, and one of the people who I actually was listening to was my comrade and sister, Sabby Sabs. And she was talking about her review of it. In the amount of 2 hours, and I felt this way before I heard any reviews from anybody, in the amount of 2 hours, you're not really going to get a detailed synopsis of Michael Jackson and his life within that amount of time. Correct me if I'm wrong for anybody who knows in the chat, but the mini series, The Jacksons, An American Dream, I think that mini series was either 6 or 8 hours, and it covered from before Michael Jackson was born, when Catherine, as well as Joe Jackson, when they met, and he was in a band. And so they covered from that all the way to the end of the Victory Tour. I think it was to the end of the Victory Tour, which was in the 80s. They didn't cover anything in the 90s, anything in the early 2000s, right? Because the Jacksons' An American Dream, I think, came out in the mid 90s. And so they cover up till like the late 80s, right after Thriller. And that was between 6 and 8 hours long miniseries. And real talk, that was detailed. That was detailed, especially, but it wasn't just Michael Jackson. It was all of them, right? They really didn't cover Janet. They didn't cover too much about Randy because Janet was still coming into her own, right? But of course, they showed the tumultuous type of relationship that Joe Jackson had with his kids, especially, of course, with Rebe, LaToya, Michael Marlon, Jackie, Jermaine, Tito. They basically talked about that. They talked, especially dove into the relationship between Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and how he really, it was almost kind of like a, those young teenage boys and they have a crush on a young woman that's older than them. It kind of felt like that. It was like, one of those. And one of the things they also covered was Michael Jackson's fear of flying. That was a big thing, right? And how he hated flying. He hated, in fact, decades later, there was a clip where he talks about, he's like, they were talking about, well, I guess the producer or the director was saying something to the effect of, talk about how you love to, how you feel about touring. And he goes, I don't like touring. He goes, I go through hell touring. And they were like, well, just don't be so negative about it. Just dress it up. And then as soon as they go action, he goes, I love to tour. and they busted out laughing because he really hates touring. And one of the interesting things that a lot of people don't realize, and it never dawned on me until lately, was that there was never a Thriller tour. Ever. The biggest album ever sold in history, and there wasn't even a tour. Can you imagine if there was a Thriller tour? My gosh. And so I do want to see it. I am not expecting it to be that detailed. I was hoping that it would go beyond 1988. I was hoping that it would branch forward into at least the 90s to the early 2000s, but it just didn't happen. But of course, as the articles say, they literally had to cut the film in half because they had like 4 hours of movie and they had to cut it down to just a little over 2 hours. And I'll be honest with you, they could have left more in. They could have kept it at 3 hours, because I'm gonna be real with you. If those of us can sit through Avengers Endgame and we can go through that, then we can get through a Michael Jackson biopic, right? We can get through that. So I think they wanted to keep the runtime around that time because they didn't want people to feel exhausted with all the information. And plus, financially speaking, it makes more sense to have, instead of a 3-hour runtime, because some people are just going to be like, I'll wait till it comes out on streaming. Instead, they want them to go to the movies. So 2 hours will allow you to be able to go to the theater and not feel like it keeps going. Versus if it's 3 or more hours, then it's like, okay, well, I'll just wait till it comes out on streaming so that by the time, I watch it, I can just pause in the middle when I feel like, and then I can come back to it. They don't want you to do that. They want you to watch it in the theater because the studios need to make money. So that's another point. And so I understand that aspect of it too. But yeah, it looks amazing. The fact that Jackie got emotional about how close he was to being Michael Jackson. If the oldest Jackson brother starts crying about how good he is, I think a lot of the family pretty much agrees and likes it. Now, there was news about Janet and Jermaine getting into a heated argument about it. And maybe, just maybe, it's because either they didn't cover enough or they covered too much. I don't know exactly Janet's perspective, but she was also asked not to be depicted in the movie, which understood. She didn't want to be depicted. But yes. But one biopic I definitely want them to make while the person is still alive. I want them to make a Dionne Warwick biopic. They need to make that. And they also need to make a Stevie Wonder biopic now, today, yesterday. Because you got to remember, Stevie Wonder, he's what, 75, about to be 76? Like, get it now. His memory's still good, and he can speak to the actor and go, hey, you know what? This is what happened, when I was younger. Get somebody who can really play that role. Because if, we saw how good Ray Charles' biopic was. And Ray Charles was alive to basically say, here's how my biopic, here's how I want it to go. I think it's the same thing with Aretha Franklin and Elton John, right? I think because the person is alive, they should be able to, if say, hey, this is what happened in my life, and they can cover that. Tina Turner, she was there on set for What's Love Got to Do with It. And so, and plus they chose one of the most phenomenal actresses of all time, Angela Bassett. So yes, honestly, I think a Stevie Wonder biopic needs to be made now while he's still alive, while he's still relatively well. Make it now. We would watch it, especially Black Americans. We would watch it and go back over and over. You think Black Panther got a lot of watching? Stevie Wonder would get a lot of watch. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? And maybe a biopic about Berry Gordy too. You know what I mean? And we're gonna go younger. I would love to see one about Smokey Robinson, but Babyface, a Babyface biopic, because when it comes to songwriters, the architects, people like Smokey Robinson, Babyface, Teddy Riley, songwriters are. You have no idea how many songs between Smokey Robinson and Babyface, how many songs they wrote that you may listen to and love, but you did not know that they wrote those songs. Like a lot of TLC songs written by Babyface, right? A lot of Tony Braxton songs written by Babyface. The song "Shoot, Shoot, 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 Babe" by Whitney Houston from "Waiting to Exhale." That's Babyface. That's his song. It's crazy how good they are. The mind that they have. My Girl by the Temptations, written by Smokey Robinson. It's great. Anywho, that was the question that led me on a tangent. I'm sorry, but thank you so much for that, Edward. Holly coming in saying, hey, JB, my favorite thing about Tuesday. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so very much. Sean coming in saying, just got back from a 3-day vacation cruise. Happy to be back to tuning in again. And happy birthday to you, Sean. Everybody give happy birthday to Sean in the chat as well. It is good to see you back among friends, okay? Give him an applause and a happy birthday. Absolutely. Okay, so, and then let me see here while we're at it. We have Cowboy Kitty coming in saying, here and accounted for. Good to see you as well. We have Raccoon Rocket coming in saying, Raccoon Rocket cut. Thank you so very much coming in here. All right, nice to have you. Have Jacqueline coming in saying, does anyone remember how long the final film of Lord of the Rings trilogy was? Over 3 hours. I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I know. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything from Lord of the Rings. I think I barely watched the first Harry Potter movie. Never really got to watch any Harry Potter, really. So, yeah. So I have a lot to watch. Roger says Jackie was the youngest, not the oldest. No, Jackie was the oldest. Jackie and Reby were the oldest of all of the Jacksons. Jackie and Reby. Go ahead. Google it. Jackie is, I think he's my mom's age. Maybe a little bit older. But yeah, trust me, I know. Why we need to make a Stevie Wonder biopic. It's not like he's going to... Roger, go home. And on you just says living together in perfect harmony. Yeah. All right. John Kemper coming in saying love, peace, and solidarity. Good to see you. Miss Fairbank coming and say, hey, everybody, good to see you. All right. Let me see. And we're about to get into this. Oh yeah, you were thinking about Randy. Yeah. Randy was the youngest. Yeah, he was the one on the bongos. All right. And yes, Bryce, thank you so very much. Do not forget to hit the like button on your way in. All right. So wait. Wait, Rocket Raccoon Record says, I made this name up last show for RFK Jr. Racist Raccoon Rocket Record is a little long. Oh my gosh. My audience, man, my audience. I gotta love y'all. Y'all make the world go round. Okay, guys. Let's get into the show today. We have 3 different segments that we're going to be getting into. And we're going to go over these right now because this is going to be, I guess one of them I'm going to be doing a bit of a deep dive, not to steal or debo the phrase from Savvy, but I do want to do this. So later in the show today, we're going to be talking about Tim Pool. And he blamed it on Ukraine. Blame it on Ukraine. Yeah. Anyways, so he blamed it on Ukraine. And I have a lot of pushback against this because it was just, gosh, he is so kissing the feet of Zionists right now. It's not even funny. We'll be getting into that. Speaking of kissing the feet of Zionists, AIPAC Shakur is on his bullshit. And we're going to be talking about Hakeem Jeffries, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. This is something that it feels like his priorities are really out of whack, but they're out of whack on purpose, and we'll be discussing exactly why. But first, we'll be talking about red credit line. And this is one thing that I think we need to talk about because the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so this is a story I think that I want to get into because we really need to talk about how things have not shifted, especially for Black people in this country. So the first story we're going to be talking about is Locked. And you're going to be wondering what those numbers are and what those red lines are. And we're getting into that right now. In the 1930s, the government literally drew red lines around Black and immigrant neighborhoods, particularly Black. If you live inside of that line, you could not get a loan, period, end of story. They called it a risk. We called it racism. Fast forward to today. The maps are gone. They don't need them anymore. Now they use a 3-digit number. A number that could be wrong 80% of the time, a number that can drop 100 points because you got sick or because the algorithm just decided to change the rules. We're told this is a meritocracy. We're told it's math. It's a lie. It's the new redlining. And today we're going to show you the data proving that your credit score isn't a measure of responsibility. It's a digital shackle. Let's go into this. We're going to be explaining how credit scores are not just a scam, but also really a holdover from anti-Blackness and racism and white supremacy. Let's start here.
The massive expansion of consumer lending is where the credit score came in. You see, lenders had long employed ways to discern how creditworthy their applicants were, with arbitrary judgments of whether they were shifty or of good character. But as corporations amassed huge reams of information on customers and their behavior, they now had enough computerized information for them to cook up algorithms about who was and who was not creditworthy. So in 1975, the first FICO score was developed. But the banks weren't so interested in trustworthy or creditworthy lenders. No, they wanted those revolvers, the people who would make them as much money as possible. And when the first general purpose FICO score came out in 1989, that's what it was designed around, which is why in 1995, the director of consumer policy at Experian, one of the biggest credit rating agencies, admitted modeling just credit risk is passé. The real risk is that a customer is not profitable.
Let's get into this right here. So he says that
real risk is that a customer is not profitable.
So the real risk is that a customer is not profitable. So one of the things that he explains in the beginning of this video, I'm not going over the entire video, but I will link it in the description below, is that creditors don't really care about the people who constantly pay on time and constantly keep a low balance and make sure that everything is copacetic as far as their income to debt ratio. They're not really interested in those. That's not who they make money off of. Who they make money off of are the people who incur those interest rates, the APRs that are 21, 22, 23, 26, 28, 30%, right? Those are the people that they make money off of. Because here's the thing. Let's say, hypothetically, you have a credit card, $2,500 limit. You maxed it out. You have an APR of, let's say, 28%. That's not out of the realm of any type of impossibility that it probably exists today, right? And so then you max it out. You don't have enough income to be able to pay it back. Well, then what ends up happening? People go, well, the credit card company is just not going to get their money. Wrong. They still do get their money. What ends up happening is that money ends up getting bought out. It may be pennies on a dollar, but they still earn something. They still get something from these small time loan, these creditors, the people who, the debt collectors, right? These small time debt collectors that they will buy up these debts for pennies on a dollar. And then let's say you owe $2,500. They also still have insurance. So if you don't pay it back, the insurance picks it up. So they can still get their money back. But then they also sell that debt, maybe what, $200-300, maybe less, right? And so they get money from that on top of it. And then the debt collectors call you, try to get you to pay your full balance, even though the debt that is owed is not to them, it is to the credit card company that they got the debt from, right? So the credit card companies still make money off of you, whether you pay it back in full or you don't. And that's a shackle that they put on people like you and me, especially those of us who are lower income or working class. And so this is the trap that they put us in, especially those of us who are Black and brown, because we are typically part of that ethos that is more economically disadvantaged. And we're going to get over to the overlays of the credit scores versus where areas are redlined classically. And we're going to compare and contrast and see that in a graph, okay? So let's continue on because this gets even deeper. Let's continue.
They were searching for what one banking publication called debt-prone consumers and systematically targeting working-class people who now needed debt in order to survive and who could be charged higher and higher interest rates as a result. So starting in the 1980s, lending to the poor, so-called subprime or non-prime lending, grew rapidly. The riskier the borrowers were, the more interest they could be charged, and the more money the bank could make off them.
that's basically making money off of the poorest of the poor. So they actually bank more off of the poor folks than they do off the rich folks, because the rich folks will make sure that those loans get paid back on time so that they're not charged more. They know that the people who are broke and poor and destitute, they cannot do it. So guess what? Because they can't pay it back, then the interest rates go up, the payments go super high, and it's something that they're locked out of and that they can't necessarily pay back. So either they're going to have to pay it back in payment plans, which these companies are fine with, because as long as they get their money, or they will sell it off to a debt collector in order for them to be able to collect the debt, and then they sell it off for pennies on the dollar, and they still get some of the money back, plus on top of that the insurance that they already had on you. And also when it comes to risk assessment, you are seen as a high risk, but of course anybody knows when it comes to risk assessment, sometimes the higher the risk, the higher the reward. And so they're looking to reward themselves by putting out these risky bets. That's what they're doing. But at the same time, if somehow something goes wrong, guess who's there to bail them out? Remember back in your head, back to 2008, when all these people defaulted on their mortgages with the subprime mortgage crisis. What was that? They basically were taking people who could not afford a traditional mortgage and who did not qualify on purpose because of their income or their debt to income ratio. And they made it so those people got mortgages anyway, knowing full well that they would not qualify for a regular mortgage loan. And so when they defaulted, guess what? The APR would go sky high and they could rake in all the money because it was way more than what they could afford. It was raking in way more than what they owed. But they weren't counting on it being, they were counting on it being a steady flow, not a tsunami. And so it flooded and overloaded the system. And because of that, then the banks were just like, they over leveraged. And so then these banks were about to fail. We saw it like back in 2006, 2007. I remember seeing on ABC News, Citigroup lost $19 billion. And I remember that specifically. I was like, how in the hell does a bank lose $19 billion? Billion with a B. And so that's what happened. And then also with Lehman Brothers, remember that? And then all these financial jargon that was being explained to us through Biden's Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson, was basically trying to explain to us that, well, they over leveraged and they had subprime mortgages and, they are, but these banks are too big to fail because if they fail, then the economy crashes and things like that. But instead of giving the money to the homeowners because they were the ones who were the victims, they gave the money straight to the perpetrators instead. And a lot of the victims were who? Living in America. See what I mean? So that's exactly what happened. Anywho, let's continue.
Why at Wells Fargo, one of the biggest banks in America, loan officers were incentivized for years to aggressively market subprime loans to Black communities, even for people who qualified for prime loans at lower interest rates. These victims were the profitable customers the banks were looking for. Wells Fargo called these ghetto loans, and loan officers referred to the individuals they were trapping in debt as mud people. Ugh. The goal, of course, was never to help them. It was to make money off them.
Make money off of them. And that's part of the capitalist incentive, because capitalism deems that you have to, it's basically about who owns the means of production. And that means of production of who owns it, they determine how the system operates. They determine, for instance, how the bank operates. And because they have a chokehold on our government, they push the government to pass laws that will guarantee them to make profit as much as possible. So therefore, the CEO of a bank or a big corporation, they have what they call a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders, which is that small group of people that own the means of production, right? And so because they have that fiduciary responsibility by law, they have a fiduciary responsibility, meaning they have to make sure that that company makes profit year over year. Meaning if they have to make sure either through a few ways, cutting jobs, raising prices, raising interest rates on their loans, something to increase profits for the shareholders so they can get bigger dividend checks by law. And so because of that, then this is why they get greedier and greedier every single year, because the capitalist system has control over our government, and then they have to deem it that you have to have infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. And infinite growth in a body with finite resources is what we call a cancer, till it consumes the host. Or you can call it a parasite. Capitalism is parasitic. And that's the way it is. And whenever you have a parasite, here's something I actually want to ask people. Do you just want to manage the parasite, or do you want to get rid of it? It's like, for instance, you got head lice. Are you just trying to manage the head lice, or are you trying to get rid of the lice? Are you trying to manage the ticks or get rid of the ticks? Are you trying to manage the fleas or get rid of the fleas? That worm that you have, are you trying to manage the worm or get rid of it? Which are you trying to do? Because what benefit is it to you? What benefit? Parasites have no benefit to the host. Let's continue on, folks.
Through predatory lending. The credit score became a crucial part of this. It's a tool of discipline that makes you into the ideal customer for the banks. That's why credit scores don't reflect actual financial health. Things like the difference between your income and your spending or how much money you've saved. What they do reflect is you being a reliable, juicy profit source for them. They're not looking for trustworthy borrowers. They're looking for people who can be counted on to live in debt, because keeping you in debt means profit. Your credit score rewards you not for making decisions that actually help you financially, but for taking on the maximum amount of debt that you can possibly repay.
So here's one thing I want people to realize. We literally live in a system that is designed that you worry more about staying off the street than you do about actually living. That's the type of system that we live in. Your credit score is basically a monitor of companies looking at you going, oh, well, you're not responsibly staying in debt. See, the goal is to keep you in debt, but they want you to default. They want you to have a bad credit score, because that means that they're going to make money off of you. People with good credit scores, they're constant. And you know, it's funny. Every single time your credit score goes up, what do banks and lenders want to do? They want to give you a higher limit. They want to give you a higher amount of money that they loan to you, right? And they say it's about trustworthiness. Is it really about trustworthiness, or is it about, well, this person is really responsible and they're able to do this with this much money? Okay, let's bump them up. Let's put more of the temptation of having more money available to borrow. So then when they mess up and go out of debt, and they get themselves into even more debt, then they'll owe us more money. And even then, even if you're good at managing the debt, you're still constantly giving them an income stream. But the real cash cow is the people who actually are what they consider irresponsible, when really they're just the cash cows that bring in the money. The hoods are really the big, the big profit centers, right? It's wild. It's really wild.
Economy as unequal and predatory as ours, credit scores may be necessary in the narrow sense of what our system demands. But credit scores and the entire system of debt that lies underneath them are not a fact of nature. They're not something eternal like the thespian artistry of Al Pacino. Credit scores are necessary only in an economy that cannibalizes the hard work, sweat, and tears of its working people, that regulates so much of our lives through a number reflecting your utility to the banking industry. You can spend your whole life working on that number, and many of you will. But no matter how high you get that score, no matter how many years of work and sacrifice you spend, you will have already paid the price. I'm Chase Madar, wandering law professor.
So basically, credit scores and credit really is a scam. It is. And the whole FICO score, I'm older than the FICO score. Well, the credit score. That 3-digit number, I'm older than that. That's how long we've been using it. It's not really anything that is necessary for us. Now, one of the things that he talked about was the racial disparities. I want to get into this because I think this is important for us to take a look at. So let me just enlarge this here so we can all can see. So I want everybody to read along. It says credit access in the United States. It says newly linked data from over 25 million Americans combining credit bureau records with U.S. Census and tax data. This study reveals large and persistent gaps in credit access by race, class, and place. By their mid-20s, individuals who are Black, low income, or grow up in certain regions like the Southeast and Appalachia have significantly lower credit scores than their peers. These lower scores are linked to tighter credit constraints, including higher interest rates, lower credit limits, and greater use of high-cost financial services. Now, the higher cost financial services, think the check cashing place near your house. That Amscot, that checks cashed, whatever, right? Where they do all the money orders and stuff. Yeah, those are the higher costs because guess what? They actually charge you more interest than the normal places do or the typical places do. So I just wanted to put that in there. All right, moving on. So we also show that credit scores both reflect and understate deeper disparities in repayment behavior among borrowers with the same credit score. Black and low income individuals are significantly more likely to fall behind on payments than their white or high income peers. At the same time, even with perfect repayment histories, Black, Hispanic, and low income borrowers tend to receive lower credit scores, leading to worse credit terms, such as higher interest rates or lower credit limits. These gaps are not fully explained by income or wealth. Instead, where someone grows up plays a powerful role. Places that foster upward mobility also promote stronger repayment behavior, suggesting that early life environments like family financial habits, neighborhood norms, and access to credit shape long-term financial outcomes. So I'm going to share this chart with you guys. It's really an interactive graph that I'm going to share, and I'll also put this in the description as well for you guys to be able to look at. But this interactive graph I want to show you guys talks about this as well. So let's take a look. So this is the Opportunity Atlas, right? And so right now we're looking at here on the right, it says average credit score. On the left, it's showing different states, like this one's out of New York, right? You could do in different ones. So I'm going to show you guys where things lie as far as different things. And we're not just going to look at credit scores. So right here in New York, it says average credit score is 664, right? So children's outcome in adulthood, average credit score is 664, right? Which is close, just slightly above the median, right? 51% of people are in debt delinquency. The incarceration rate is 1.4%, right? So that's from all. Let's switch it from all to black. Now, it says it's higher, right? So it says debt delinquency now went up to 68%. Incarceration rate is 3.3. Now, just because incarceration is higher doesn't necessarily mean that Black people are more prone to crime. Absolutely not. It's just that we are disproportionately affected by the white supremacist system of policing. And so therefore we are arrested and incarcerated at higher rates, even though we are 50% of the population. I'm sorry, we are 13% of the population, but we make up over 50% of exonerations, meaning that we actually didn't do the crime, but we are incarcerated for it anyway. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about, because a lot of times people will bring up the FBI data and say, oh, well, there are 13% of the population but commit 50% of the crimes. No, that's 50% of arrests. That doesn't mean convictions. That doesn't mean that they're actually guilty. We're just disproportionately arrested more because of the color of our skin. But we're also exonerated at the highest as well. And so this shows why the incarceration rate is basically double that. So we're at low income. We can go to middle income, and actually average credit score actually went down, right? Now we can go, let's go to Florida, right? You see it says Deltona. I wonder if I can, yeah, okay. So I want to go to Orlando where I live. So it's basically smack dab in the middle, right? Average for a Black middle class credit score is 615, right? Let's go to lower income, right? Orlando's 595. 595. Let's go to all races. Orlando 641. But when you put it in Black, it goes down to 595, right? Look in predominantly Black areas. Let's go to let's go to Alabama. Talladega, Alabama, 581. What is this one? It's Waco, Texas, 569, right? And then Plainview, Texas, is 572. Brady is 567. 560. So if you look, especially in a lot of predominantly Black areas, let's go to South Carolina. Let's see it. Florence, Charlotte is 591. Columbia is 584. And people say, well, that's low income. Let's put middle income. Middle income Black people. Bamwell, 599. Right? Monroe is 595. Chicago, 605, right? That's for middle income. Most of us are going to be between middle and low. Now, let's change from credit score. Here's how, look, credit score, we can go to auto loan. Let's go to auto loans. Take a look. Auto loan balance, right? Orlando is 7.3 thousand, and this is middle income. Low income, 6.5 thousand. What's this? Santa Fe in New Mexico is 10,000. They are very much in debt, especially in car dependent areas. Twin Falls, 9.9 thousand. Provo, Utah is 9.6 thousand. Look at that. Look at that. Let's go to all. If you notice something, it's funny. When we go to all and low income, when it comes to auto loan balance, what do you notice? The colors shift. Why? Because in this part of the West, it is a lot less public transportation, which means you absolutely need a car in order to be able to get around. That being the case, then if you're a lower income, you are extremely financially stressed on auto loans. Let's go to middle. Basically virtually the same, right? Not that much of a difference. And I'm sticking to middle and low income because most of us sit in that arena. Let's go from auto loan balance. Let's go to credit card balance. Interesting. Credit card balance. This is from all. Let's go to black. Wow. This is deep. Let's move on from, oh, I didn't know I can move that. Okay. Credit card balance. You can go to hourly wage per hour, individual income, teen birth rate. There's so many different ones you can do. Median rent from 2012 to 2016. You can do college graduates, all these different things. But that's something I wanted to share with you guys. And I will share this with you guys in the description below. But due to the sake of time, I want to continue on. But let's get into the neutrality myth, okay? Because I want to get into this as well. Because I want to share this. Let me see here. As far as neutrality myth goes, this is out of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. New research reveals widespread bias, inefficiency in credit scoring and mortgage lending. Now it says credit scores and mortgage approvals serve as fundamental gatekeepers to financial opportunity, heavily influencing the individual's borrowing costs and access to essential resources. Yet, despite decades of regulatory scrutiny and the recent rise of seemingly sophisticated algorithmic tools, new research indicates that systemic biases and fundamental inefficiencies persist throughout the financial ecosystem. Let's go down to here. Racial disparities persist across mortgage lender type. Wait, is that the one I wanted to go to? Oh, let's go here first. It talks about the algorithmic bias embedded in credit scores disadvantages women. It says in their paper, are credit scores gender neutral? Evidence of miscalibration from alternative and traditional borrowing data. Liu and Liang study whether credit scoring systems are inherently disadvantaged women, particularly within the context of subprime borrowing. The findings are published in the Journal of Behavioral and Experimental Finance demonstrate clear evidence of a systemic gender bias embedded within current scoring models. So it says, so let's look at it here. It says, so really research from Yee's College of Business shows that credit scoring algorithms penalize women by 6 to 8 points compared to men with identical risk profiles. Furthermore, women have a lower default rates than men, yet receive lower scores. And so here we see this here. It says, although a 6 to 8 point reduction might seem modest, this difference carries considerable significance. So it says it can lead to substantial repercussions, including higher interest rates, restricted credit limits, and decreased opportunities for loan approval, ultimately diminishing economic welfare over multiple borrowing cycles. And so let's go here. Talks about just the gender gap with regards to credit. It says the analysis of the area under the curve measure of predictive accuracy shows that credit scores were slightly better at predicting default among male borrowers across most loan types. So bill pay, installment loans, lines of credit. This differential predictive power further highlights the embedded algorithmic bias that disproportionately impacts women. So even when you go to gender, it actually impacts either gender. Now, it also talks about how it also has there's no neutrality when it comes to even people who are Black, right? It says another comprehensive study utilized Home Mortgages Disclosure Act from 2018 to 2023 to analyze racial and ethnic disparities in approval rates, rate speeds, and orientation changes across 5 distinct lender types: large banks, fintech lenders, non-bank lenders, small banks, and credit unions. The analysis found that the persistent disparities exist and that no single lender type uniformly eliminates disadvantages for minority borrowers. Their findings were released in the Racial Disparities Conforming to Mortgage Lending, a comparative study of fintech and traditional lenders under regulatory oversight, which was published in the journal Fintech. So here's the point that I want to make clear. If an algorithm can't even tell the difference between a male risk and a female risk accurately, why are we trusting it to decide who gets housing? Now, let's get to the return of redlining, because I want to share this. We share here. Okay. CFPB to gut indirect discrimination in civil rights rule. So it says, what's at stake? Says the Bureau acknowledges that the elderly, minorities, and people with low incomes may be harmed by the changes. Expert quote says the proposed rule will effectively invite a return to redlining and exclusion. Key insight: the CFPB claims that the statutory language of the ECOA makes no difference and disparate impact claims should be eliminated. So it says Jaybefaunt, president and CEO of National Community Reinvestment Coalition, called the plan an outright assault on civil rights and lending. By gutting disparate impact and analysis and banning race or gender-based special purpose credit programs, this rule will effectively invite a return to redlining and execution. In a strange twist, the Bureau claims that disparate impact liability would allow lenders to discriminate against non-protected classes. So really, this isn't about gender bias. This is systemic. And the National Community Reinvestment Coalition they warn that the recent regulatory changes by the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, effectively invites a return to redlining by gutting desperate impact rules. Now, let's go here as well, according to this rule as well. Because I want to share this as well, because this is really systemic. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is now under the purview of the executive branch, which is under the purview of the Trump administration, says proposed CFPB rule, rural social housing government reopening, says proposed rule from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau threatens civil rights. On November 13, 2025, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau published a proposed rule that, if finalized, goes into effect, would have devastating impact on our collective efforts to ensure an inclusive access to credit in the United States. First, the proposed rule would alter the CFPB's longstanding interpretation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, allows for desperate impact claims, and instead codify in regulation to which claims are not available. For decades, consumers and government enforcers have used ECOA to effectively challenge unjustified policies and practices that disproportionately exclude people of color, women, and other protected class members from access to high quality credit, regardless of whether the discriminatory intent undergirds the challenge policy or practice, and determining that desperate impact liability should not attach under ECOA, and the CFPB runs roughshod over legislative history that could not possibly be clearer, the point in question. So let's take a look. So here's the point. They are removing the desperate impact rule. That's a legal term for if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. I want you to believe they want you to believe that if the algorithm isn't saying a racial slur, that it isn't racist, but data does not need intent to cause harm. So I'm going to share this redlining map because I wanted to share an area in Orlando that a lot of people do not really know about. You see here. Okay. And I think this is really important. Because once you start to see disparities, then it really is pretty clear that the more things change, the more things stay the same. History may not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So I'm going to share with you guys this map. And also I'm going to share with you guys the disparities here. So here's Orlando. And this is from the Community Credit Score Index here out of Orlando. So there's two different places where this is example. You have Clear Lake, which is zip code 32805. You have College Park in Orlando, which is zip code 32804. Now, average credit score in Clear Lake is 623. Average credit score in College Park is 725. Median household income is just over $39,000 in Clear Lake. In College Park, median household income is more than double at $113,000. Unemployment in Clear Lake is 4.8% versus College Park, which is about half, is 2.8%. Clear Lake has less than 50% home ownership, whereas College Park is well over 50% for home ownership. Median house home value, a lot of people don't talk about this, is $226,100 in Clear Lake. $498,000 for median home income. I'm sorry, home value. My apologies. In College Park. And then, of course, the high school graduation rate is 78, just over 78% in Clear Lake, but in College Park is at over 97%. Here's something I want people to focus on: the life expectancy. Life expectancy in Clear Lake is 73.2 years, whereas this College Park is 79.7 years. And so the reason why I want to show that is that College Park and Clear Lake are not that far apart. Not very far apart at all. I think it's like a 3-mile difference. 3 miles, that's it. And so let me share with you guys this redlining map. And I'm going to show you guys where Clear Lake is, and I'm going to show you guys where College Park is. So let me share this. So this is a redlining map, right? So you guys can see. This is a redlining map in Orlando. And let's take a look at this right here. Number 1 means residential section. Number 2 means business section. Number 3 means colored section and cheaper area. And it says, no, Orlando has no fundamental area of merit. So 1, 2, and 3. So 1, residential section, that means basically white section. 2, business section is just basically the industrial area. And 3 is the section where Black people live. Now, number 1 is this area. See, all the number 1s. This is College Park. Now, I'm going to share this with you guys so you guys can know. This is why it's called College Park, because I want you guys to look at the road. So this is Winter Park Avenue. Winter Park is one of the most nicer areas near downtown Orlando, right? Anybody from here knows that Winter Park is a nice area. It's predominantly white. After you get down to Fairvilla and Smith, then you have Princeton, Harvard, and Yale, right? So you have Princeton Avenue, Harvard Avenue, Yale Avenue. This is why it's called College Park, right? Once you get down there, here's how close Clear Lake is. So, right, College Park, then you go down, boom, right? See, 1 and then 2 is more industrial. What's right next to industrial? Black neighborhood, right? And so here you have Church Street, Lake Lorna Dune. This is the Tinker Field. Tinker Field is actually pretty interesting because Tinker Field is one of the only stops that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. actually spoke at in Orlando in the 60s. This is actually a plaque there at Tinker Field. And what's right next to Tinker Field now is Camping World Stadium. And Camping World Stadium is a huge stadium. It's like 60,000 seats, something like that. But they usually have big concerts there, things like that. And I actually said on my channel that the people who live in the area cannot afford to go to these shows and festivals that are held there because the area just is the most disenfranchised area. I actually did a video, well over a year ago, talking about how this particular zip code, 32805, is the most economically disadvantaged area in Orlando. On top of that, you also have, it's predominantly Black. It's a historically Black neighborhood in Orlando. And I'm going to show you where. So forgive me for being a little bit blind, but yes, I found it. So right here, smack dab in the middle, this is Paramore, right? Now, Gore and Paramore, right next to this number 3, at the lowest number 3, is where I go to do mutual aid. They typically have mutual aid over that area. Shout out to Real Orlando. They do great work in doing mutual aid, and I usually assist them with that, volunteer with them to do that. But yeah, and still a predominantly Black area, predominantly Black American area. And it is also one of the most economically disadvantaged areas in the city. And so, like I said, right, this is Clear Lake area. You remember the racial disparities, remember the income disparities there, right? A lot of times you get a lot of people on the left that want to talk about, oh, we shouldn't talk about race. We shouldn't talk about race. And then, so you got the race reduction. I'm sorry, you got the class reductionists on one side saying we don't need to talk about race. We just need to talk about class. And then also you have the race reductionists that talk about, oh, we just need to talk about race. And we just want to need to keep the capitalist system in place in order to be able to have upward mobility of Black people. Whereas the income disparities among Black people as well, like you have the higher income affluent Black people that look down their noses at us and do not want to see us actually have real upward mobility. So to be honest with you, race and class, or identity and class per se, are actually more intertwined. So this is why I look at the class reductionists and the race reductionists and I go, yeah, you guys both need to come to the middle, because it is both. But a lot of times people look at me and go, oh, no, you're wrong. Or you're too liberal, or you're too conservative, because you don't focus just on race, or you don't focus just on class. And the problem is that people don't focus on bringing them both together because they actually intersect. And that's one of the biggest issues that I think the left, especially in the United States, really needs to get past. They really need to develop more. But yes, so here you have Gore that goes down into, and Gore turns into Orange Center Boulevard. Then you have Tampa Avenue right here, right? And then you have the rest of the houses in the Black area. So this basically, everything is number 3 is Black homes, Black area. Rock Lake. I actually went to an elementary school here in Rock Lake. I went there for 3rd grade. Was it 3rd grade or 4th grade? I think I went to, it was 4th grade. I went there for 4th grade. I went to Rock Lake Elementary. And so that's essentially how the disparities are when it comes to redlining. It actually reflects the credit scores and the credit worthiness between Black areas predominantly and white areas. So on one hand, you got a predominantly Black area that's also disadvantaged, where also their credit scores are lower. But then you also have the white area, which is College Park, predominantly white area, where their credit scores and income is much higher. And so the reason why I also wanted to talk about that is because a lot of times people think credit scores is just about to be able to buy things. But the problem is that it's more than that. And so this article here, this is from a law firm, says, from perfect score to legal war, holding credit bureaus accountable. And so I want to share this. Now, let me go down here. It says, what's changed in 2025? The credit clampdown. Here's the point. 47% of employers now run credit checks as part of hiring. Oop, let me share. Sorry about that. 47% of employers now run credit checks as a part of hiring. So sometimes it's not because you're not qualified, it's because your credit is low, and so they do not want to hire you. Which also, if we take that nugget of information and couple it with the racial disparities within credit as well, this is a way to get around not hiring Black people as much and still being racist while saying, hey, we're not being racist, we're just focusing on the credit scores. Because they know that they really can't do it because of the way we look. They know that we probably might be able to sue if they do it based on, for instance, the name. Because if it's a black sounding name, like a Keisha, like a Romika, or Jamarcus, right? Even though we know that Jamarcus and Duanetta both have really strong work ethic. They're always on time, and they do great work. They probably even have maybe a college degree or some type of technical education. Jamarcus and Duanetta, they are not qualified according to them because their credit scores are low, and their credit scores are low due to where they live, which is in a predominantly black area. And so it's not because they're not qualified for the job, it's because they're black. But then that also intersects with income. There's also another point that I want to bring here. So, of course, right? Let's go here. It also shares that nearly half of employers eliminate candidates with scores below 650 often before the interview. So when you fill out your application and then you submit your resume and they go and they don't even call, or they may send you some automated email and go, oh, we regret to inform you that your application hasn't been approved. We decide to go with somebody else. It may not be because you do not lack the qualifications. It's because your credit is too low. Because when you sign that application, what is the one number that they always ask for? Social Security number. You think they're just putting that in just for background check? You know what part of the background check is? Your credit. That's part of the background check. Now, it used to be for financial institutions, they would check your credit because they wanted to see whether you'll be more desperate in stealing from them or not. But now, a lot of companies that aren't even in the financial services, they're also doing the exact same thing because it gives them the ability to discriminate with plausible deniability. That's what it does. And that's how terrible it really is. Now, what's the point, right? In 2025, lenders tightened standards significantly. 60% of them raised their standards. Personal loan approvals for scores under 650 were dropped by 40%. What's the narrative here? You need a job to have money. You need money to pay the bills. You need to pay the bills to have a good credit score. But now, to get the job, you need a credit score first. It's a closed loop designed to keep the working class out. And this is why I say it locks you out. This is what it's designed to do. And capitalism is so nefarious because that locking people out means that there's this reserve of unemployed people that they can just pull from. Because if you get too uppity and say, well, no, I deserve a living wage, or we deserve more work-life balance, they'll say, all right, get out. All right, I'm gonna pick somebody who's desperate, who will take and do the work that you won't do because you don't want to be exploited as much, and we'll grab somebody else. They're going to do that because they need to keep an unemployment rate at a certain level so that there's always another person to switch you out with because you're expendable. And that's how the system works. You are expendable to them. To capitalists, you're just a part that if you don't want to cooperate, they got a whole bin full of those parts that they can just swap you out with. Don't matter. You want a better work-life balance? Tough. They can get somebody who will take a worse work-life balance than you. You want to be able to have better pay? Tough. They will get somebody who will work for worse pay. And it ain't got to be a immigrant to do it. It just got to be somebody desperate enough. Immigrants were the easy, low-hanging fruit because they already had that automatic desperation because they were immigrants, especially if they were undocumented. But that could be anybody. And this is why I say our lives in this system are to just keep ourselves from being out on the street. The reason why you work as hard as you do is to keep yourself from getting out in that street. That's it. You're working as hard as you are to just exist. Just exist. Not live, exist. Any wonder why all these Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alpha are now crying in tears, bawling online, talking about, I can't afford to even live. How do you expect me to be able to live? Because they can't. Because the system isn't broken. It is designed to be this way. Because if you're desperate enough, you will accept whatever abuse comes your way, just as long as you have some semblance of a roof over your head and some crumbs to eat. But they need to keep you hungry so that you keep working for the master. Now, here's the architecture of assumption. Share this. This is an interesting article. It says, I tracked how a single algorithmic decision in Singapore cascades to loan denials in Lagos and job rejections in Sao Paulo. This is what digital colonialism actually looks like. So it goes here. And basically, there was this particular algorithm that allows for small business loans to go to people, particularly in Singapore. But they said that can they scale that for people in places like Lagos and Sao Paulo? And they said yes. But the people in Lagos and Sao Paulo, because they did it, because of the way they have to live their lives in places like Lagos, right? Is that, am I saying it right? Is it Lagos or Lagos? Lagos? Anyways, because of that, because their lives are more precarious. They have one person has one phone, and then in order to switch, sometimes they have to switch SIM cards. And so there's not as much financial consistency. There are periods of ups and downs financially within these cities. And so it is more difficult. And so these algorithms sense the inconsistencies in income on their phones, even if they are making enough money in order to have these loans or get these jobs or what have you. The problem is that because their system in Lagos, they go by things a little bit differently. What happens in Singapore and in certain parts of Asia, because they had that stability, it's not there in Lagos. And I'd argue it's because of colonialism that has actually given them a fractured base to begin with. That's why. But these algorithms, the way they're built, it doesn't work. It doesn't suit the people within that given area. So algorithms are trained on the behavior of the rich, i.e. Singapore. They assume that stable poverty, which is switching to SIM cards to save money, which is poverty. So if you share a phone, switch SIM cards, have irregular income, which a lot of people in Lagos have a gig economy, the algorithm flags you as a liar or a risk, right? So let me share this point here. Let me enlarge as well, just so you guys can see. So it says every single behavioral signal the Singaporean model treated as a proxy for stability reads in Lagos as proxy for risk. Multiple SIMs flag, inconsistent GPS flag, irregular top-ups flag. The model doesn't know why someone in Moonshin switches SIM cards 3 times a week. It just knows that pattern doesn't match its training data's definition of a reliable borrower. When I contacted Nigerian fintech licensing this model, they asked not to be named as they're in the process of switching providers. Their head of data science told me something revealing. We knew the model wasn't perfect for our market, but the alternative was building from scratch, which takes years and millions we don't have. So we calibrated, we adjusted thresholds, but the architecture of the model, the features it prioritizes, those stay the same. Says that word architecture stuck with me. You can adjust the thermostat, but if the building's walls are made of glass, you're still going to overheat. The architecture of assumption is embedded in the model. It wasn't a bug to be patched, it was the foundation. And so let me share this here. It talks about Sao Paulo. I'm going to start here. It says, I spoke with a researcher at the University of Sao Paulo's Center for Artificial Intelligence who had been studying the algorithmic hiring tools at the gig economy. She described the pattern she called infrastructure bias. Workers in favelas, where internet connectivity drops frequently and shared devices are the norm, were systemically scored lower than workers in wealthier neighborhoods. The digital footprint looked to the algorithm like the footprint of an unreliable people. In reality, it was the footprint of poverty itself. The algorithm does not discriminate by race or income directly. It discriminates by the digital artifacts of structural inequality. The effect is the same, the deniability is better. The last sentence stayed with me. The deniability is better. This is the core mechanism of what scholars like Catherine D'Ignazio and Lauren Klein have called the data power framework, systems that reproduce existing hierarchies while appearing technically neutral. The algorithm in question never asked about race, never asked about income, never asked about the neighborhood. It simply measured patterns that are themselves products of centuries of racialized economic exclusion and then penalized people for exhibiting them. So here is the point that I want to make abundantly clear here. This reminds me of the racial disparities in healthcare equipment, the algorithm and systems that favor white people over dark-skinned people, especially Black patients. Take, for instance, the pulse oximeter. I'm always having trouble saying that word. It was developed and was made for people who have less melanated skin. For darker skinned people like myself, if we had issues breathing oxygen, the pulse oximeter would overcompensate and say our oxygen levels are normal. Then we have the worst complication. We will have worse complications, and then we will also develop asthma or other pulmonary issues because the device was never tested or developed for darker skin. This leads to a larger population of Black people having untreated conditions which harm us more than any other demographic. This is just the economic, digital, and algorithmic example. So this explains how within Singapore, it leads to denied loans and Legos and job reduction in Sao Paulo. Now, let's apply this to the United States. A coding error in Silicon Valley can evict a family in Detroit. And so let's go back. Let's go back to this. It says auto loans. Scores under 650 trigger rates above 12%. Those over 750 see just 4 to 6%. Housing, most in Los Angeles rentals require scores of 700 with premium locations demanding 750. It says mortgage. A credit score under 620 on an $800,000 loan equals $400,000 more in interest over 30 years. Auto loan going from 750 to below 600, payments jump from $650 a month to $900 plus monthly. And so this is the price of the impacts of having worse credit. This is the impacts that it does based on your location and race, right? Now, let's check our privilege. I want you to answer this question for me. Do you know your credit score right now? If you just think it, do you know your credit score right now without having to look it up? If you said yes immediately, you are likely in the top 30% of earners. The working class doesn't know their score. They fear their score. I'm scared to find mine out. I know some of y'all are scared to look at yours. So for a lot of people, we don't know because we realize and know that it will never be anything above that will be acceptable for us to be able to live a more decent life. And what ends up happening is, let's say you have a medical emergency. You have a medical emergency, something happens, you trip, you fracture a bone or something like that. And because of that, you have to pay on it with a credit card, or you got a bill. Or let's say, for instance, you got into something wrong happened with your car. You need something to be fixed, and you don't have the money to fix it. Maybe you do have a credit card and you pay on it with your credit card, but you don't have the money to pay it back. One broken ankle, one broken water pump. That's all it takes to go from a homeowner to homeless. It's in the eyes of a machine. That's the problem with the algorithm. And so we started with red lines on a map, and these now are red lines in a cloud. The weapon has changed, but the target hasn't. The working class, the disproportionately women, people of color, women, the poor, they're being locked out of housing, cars, and jobs by machines that we are not allowed to see. This isn't financial literacy problem. You cannot educate your way out of a rigged system. This is a systemic issue. But one thing you need to remember is your worth is not a number. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. That went on longer than I wanted it to, but it's all good. I hope that got some people thinking about the credit system within this country, because ultimately a lot of people just haven't really regarded it that much. And I think it's absolutely necessary that we get into that as well. And I missed this part. It's okay. But yeah, the locations in places like College Park compared to Clear Lake, the disparities are huge, huge in Orlando. And there's a lot of people within this this city. Well, really, in all of Florida, there's a lot of people that are expressing how terrible it is and how expensive things are getting, primarily because a lot of people are moving here. So let me share this. Oh, before I get into that, I forgot to do this. Hang on. I'm sorry, guys. Let's get into let's get into thanking the patrons on Patreon. Sorry, guys. All right. So thank you so much to the patrons on Patreon for tuning in and supporting the channel. So if you guys can, let's take a look at the tiers. All right. So we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters. Then we have Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you to all new future members. You guys make this channel possible. Thank you so very much. Deeply appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. If you guys would like to, as well, I also have my Venmo link as well in the bottom of the description of the video. If you guys would like to help out in that direction as well, the best way to do it, really is become a patron on Patreon. Also, with the patrons, I try to upload early before it comes out on YouTube and Rumble, so you guys will get it already. Also, some people I've heard they are complaining about the amount of ads that are on videos. I largely just do not control the amount of ads that are there. And so if you guys would like to have just completely ad-free, you guys can join a Patreon if you guys want to, and you guys can just watch it without having any ads as well. If you guys would like to just support the channel, then there's also memberships as well. So thank you very much for that there. Or super chats if you guys want to do something more immediate. So thank you very much for that. All right. So John Kemper says, over the years, I have watched him play with my credit score like it's a game, up 30 for paying off something, down 30 a month later for nothing. Yeah, a lot of us have been looking at credit scores. I stopped looking. Edward says, the credit card companies make money off of poor people because the debt collectors get paid commissions off of those who are late with their payments. Yeah. IndoFeed says, on point. Thank you so very much. Jacqueline says, I remember there was a run on the RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, over here in the UK in 2008. I bet BlackRock profited from all this. Most likely. I wouldn't be surprised if BlackRock profited from it. Roger says, just like how free college, tech plus trade, training, healthcare would make military recruitment impossible. A minimum wage permanently tied to cost of living would make credit companies impossible to exist. And I am all for making credit financial agencies obsolete. I am all for that. We do not need them at all. And this one also says in 1919, Michigan State Supreme Court decision of Dodge Brothers versus the Henry Ford Motor Company established the fiduciary duty of shareholder primacy, where shareholders were left off the hook for examination if what they do harms society. Yeah, that's actually a really good one. Thank you very much for that, Roger. I appreciate that. This is also a really good point, Cowboy Kitty. It says they talk about China's social credit score while implementing even worse-ish here. Yeah, and the whole thing about the social credit score in China is actually propaganda. It's brainwashing because they don't really have a social credit score. Like for instance, when you want to get an apartment in China, they don't do a credit check. Do you have the money to pay per month? Yes. Okay. Shake hands. Fill out the application. Shake hands. It's so simple. It's not this complex. You know what I mean? And the thing is, like for instance, here in the United States, you have to do an application fee, then you have to do a credit check. And then the crazy part is, and I went through this, a couple of years ago, is that let's say your credit is okay, but the person you're moving in with also has to do a credit check. Because if you're two adults, then you have to do two applications. If the person you're living with is over 18, so let's say you have a partner, you have a friend or whoever, right? If they're over the age of 18, they also have to apply. And they have to have a credit check too. And if their credit is not up to par to their standards, then guess what? You both get rejected for the place. Because if one person's credit is bad, they need both people to have sufficient credit. And that's the part that sucks. And this is why some people still can't get a place, even if they make enough money, because their credit is bad. Or meaning their ability to be able to pay on time is bad. But here's the crazy part. Paying on time means that you have to have the income in order to be able to do it. It's not, it's like, where's the line of when it goes past, oh, you're just being irresponsible and you're not being responsible. As food prices go up, housing prices go up, medical prices, school, all these different things that we need in order to be able to live, as they go up, it is hard to be responsible when you ain't got shit. And so when you need to eat, you get desperate. And guess what? If that money is there for you to borrow, then that's why people borrow. Let me ask some of y'all this. How many of you have went into debt by borrowing money from Cash App? How many of y'all are like, oh, can you send, wanting to borrow money from a family member, but then they want to Cash App you something. They go, no, you can't do it through Cash App because Cash App will just take it. Why did you borrow money? Because financially, you don't make enough. And you had to borrow that money out of desperation because of the way the system operates. It's not because you're irresponsible. It's because you cannot financially literacy your way out of the way this system is built. It is built so that you don't. That's the crazy part. Desperation makes people do wild things. That's just the way it is. So let me see here. I'll get to that in a little bit as well. Sorry for the banging, guys. Some family is over doing some stuff in the living room. Yeah. I don't have a studio, y'all. This is all a grassroots operation, and this is a real channel. Okay? I'm just saying. Endofeed says yes, 100% away for whites from is just to bypass interrogating their thinking. Yesterday saw a show focused on class analysis, punching down on a woman of color with no second thought. Outrageous. Um, Hang on, let me see this. David Willie says, cool. Billionaires don't mind being taxed, just spend it right. Billionaires shouldn't exist. It says, although the issue is twofold, you have the deck stacked against you, and then a lot of poor act in ways, whether they know it or not, to keep them poor. We're not doing race; it doesn't exist. Statistics would argue otherwise. First of all, and also you say that they're operating ways that keep them poor. My question is, it's like, tell that to the people where their rent keeps going up and they don't make enough money in order to be able to live, and their pay doesn't keep up with the cost of inflation. That is a statistical fact. And so if your pay does not keep up with the cost of inflation, then you get into even worse circumstances because of the way the system operates. See, we cannot, and I'm going to make this abundantly clear because I don't think I've seen you too often on the channel. If you're new, welcome. Nice to have you. You cannot fix systemic problems with individual solutions. And this is the financial equivalent of saying you guys just need to stop using plastic straws and start using paper straws. Right? Whereas, who's the biggest polluters out there? It's not the people using plastic straws, right? You stopping using a plastic straw isn't really the biggest issue. It is the United States military and these big, huge corporations that are doing the most pollution and damaging of our planet. Let's reel those in, right? Because it's a systemic problem. And who owns our government? It would be them. Now, it's the same thing when it comes to finances. The big financial corporations are the ones that are causing us the most harm. And so you can say, well, it's just decisions based on people and their actions. And that's negligible, because ultimately it is about really people who are being taken advantage of on the system on purpose so that they stay in that situation, because they need that reserve army of labor, and they need them to be desperate and essentially hungry so that you will be okay with accepting exploitation on a mass scale. That's how the system operates. And so we can say we can financially teach financial literacy, and people can try to be financially literate all day long. But if you don't have the money to back it up, what's the use? You can drive a car on a hot day, not operate the air conditioning, and then roll the windows down, and then drive in a very fuel efficient way, right? But if I still take a hose and take a huge chunk of all your gasoline out of your tank and then tell you to drive, you can be as fuel efficient as possible, but you're still going to run out of gas. See what I mean? Because I actually did the thing where I took and I siphoned the fuel out of your gas tank. And this is what we have. We have a system that siphons more of the fuel out of our gas tank than ever before. And so we're trying to be more efficient, but it's nearly impossible because ultimately the engine is still the engine. The tires are still the tires. The car is still the car. And you can't really change the car because that car is basically your life. And so I know a lot of times people just want to blame the individual, but you need to start blaming the system for the primary failures. But people who are more privileged don't want to blame the system, because then that means they're not as good as they think they are. The billionaires are not good. The people who are super affluent are not good. They just worked the game better, or they were willing to exploit people better. The system necessitates that you either exploit and be morally repugnant towards people in order to succeed, or be a good person and suffer. That's how it is. The people who are at the top economically are some of the most morally repugnant people. And it doesn't matter their race, creed, nationality, whatever status. It does not matter. Is that they're willing to exploit people no matter what. And that's what determines whether you will make it or not. And that is a system that needs to end. And it's not the individual, it is the system that creates this problem. Are people responsible? Is relative. It's not absolute. What is absolute is this system. And this system needs to be dismantled and tossed to the side. All right. Roger Meadows says, I never shy away from the banks. Big proponent of public banking and postal banking. I typically go with credit unions, but public banking would be a great tool to be able to increase the infrastructure. But let's move on to the oh, let me check Rockfin. I'm sorry. Let me see if I have any Rumble rants. My apologies, guys. All right, so we have a link from HempCarb. Thank you very much for that. And by the way, when we start people with, getting into debt, I mean, we're literally like people who are college students, they usually have to take out student loans. You literally have 17, 18-year-olds that their brains aren't fully developed yet. And then they are signing applications in order to be able to take out loans that they may never be able to pay back in order to get an education, just so that they can be okay, so that they don't end up out on the street. That's a systemic thing. Those APR, those percentages, you can't negotiate that. You can't negotiate with this college and go, oh, well, yeah, I'll take out a student loan, but you need to lower that interest rate. That's not how it works. And you can't claim bankruptcy on those because Joe Biden was the one who made it so you couldn't. It's systemic. It's embedded in the system. So let's go into the next one. Let's talk about AIPAC Shakur, because he got me all the way messed up. So we're going to talk about Homeboy. Let me make sure everything is set up and ready to go so that everybody will see what I see. All right. So, and this will be a quicker segment, by the way, just letting you guys know. see. Let me share. I'll do that one. Okay. All right. So let's get into this. Now, for one night only, Hakeem Jeffries. Same bullshit. Live February 30th and 31st, 2027. Let's go. AIPAC Shakur, aka Hakeem Jeffries, aka AIPAC Shakur, is under fire right now, especially from a lot of liberals, because he basically said that impeaching Trump is not going to be his highest priority if Democrats win back the House. Let's go into this story here. It is really showing. I'm going to share with you guys why Hakeem Jeffries really isn't about making things better for Americans. It is just about keeping the system in place. So let's go here. So this article out of the Hill. Now it says, Jeffrey says Trump impeachment not a top priority if Dems win the House majority. So let's get into this. So House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Sunday said Democrats will not focus on impeaching President Trump if they regain a majority of the lower chamber after midterm elections. When asked if impeachment was a top priority, Jeffries said, of course not, during an appearance on Fox News Sunday. He said, I made it clear from the very beginning that our top priority is going to be to drive down the high cost of living. We believe in this country. You work hard, you play by the rules. You should be able to live an affordable life, a comfortable life, in fact, to live the good life. And that means a good paying job and good housing, good healthcare, good education for your children. And when it is said and done, a good retirement. Here's the thing. This is all bullshit. He doesn't believe that, because if that was the case, then he'd be working way harder. He would have actually criticized Joe Biden for helping keep this country in the place that it is. And you can make the argument and say, oh, well, he had to clean up Trump's mess. But the thing is, it's like, look, between 2008 and 2010, we literally had a majority in the House, a super majority that was filibuster proof in the Senate, as well as we had the executive branch under Barack Obama. And like I said in the prior segment before, when it came to the 2008 housing crisis, under the subprime mortgage crisis that we were experiencing, instead of giving that money back to the people who were the real victims of the subprime mortgage crisis, the homeowners, and just giving out stimulus checks to the people, was it really stimulus checks or was it more reparations? It should have been. But that repair should have been towards the homeowners who were given those subprime mortgages so that they can at least get their head above water. But that's not what happened. The perpetrators, the banks, the ones who actually caused this mess to happen, they were the ones that were bailed out, not the homeowners. And because they were bailed out, then guess what? They still went to the homeowners even after this, and even after those banks were kept afloat by our government, by the taxpayers who are also the homeowners. Then guess what? They also went back to those homeowners and said, yeah, give me that. They didn't say, oh, well, because the government gave us the money that could have came from you in order to keep your house, well, we're just going to waive, we're going to cancel the foreclosure, or if your house is delinquent, we're going to cancel out that delinquency because that basically that debt has already been covered. They didn't do that. They got the money for that debt, and then they also asked you for more. And so that was never done with Obama, right? In fact, black wealth actually tanked under Obama. because of what he did. He said you should be able to live an affordable life. Okay. So if that was the case, then Bill Clinton wouldn't have signed NAFTA, right? He wouldn't have signed NAFTA and then had all of our jobs shipped overseas, right? And also PNTR, permanent normal trade relations with China. He wouldn't have signed that over. Because the thing is, like, they're crying over how China is essentially beating our behinds when it comes to economically. The economic upward mobility of China is pretty much a miracle because of what the United States did. They basically said, oh, well, we want cheaper labor. Okay, let's send all of our jobs over to China. And so now China is the juggernaut that it is economically and even technologically, while the United States is stuck in the 1920s. And since doing that, now the United States is crying foul, but they were the ones that gave the jobs away in the first place. They were the ones that gave away the manufacturing in the first place. This happened not just under Reagan. This also happened under Clinton. This continued under Bush. This continued under Obama, and so on and so forth. So he says a comfortable life. Well, most of us aren't living that. And says, in fact, in order to live a good life, that means a good paying job. Well, if that was the case, then why didn't they increase the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to a living wage? Why is it still $7.25 an hour, even though we had Obama as president for 8 years? By the way, the minimum wage went up even though it happened during Obama's presidency. It was brought up under George W. Bush's administration. A lot of people don't know that. It wasn't Obama that raised the minimum wage. It was George W. Bush. Now, this is not saying that anything good about George W. Bush, because he's a mass murderer and he's a megalomaniac and he's a trust fund oil baby. But the point is that how in the world are you going to have a Republican, somebody like George W. Bush, outflank you from the left on that? That is wild to me. That's crazy work, right? So Obama should have pushed for that, but he didn't. And so good paying job, good housing. The homelessness rate has, way more than doubled since 2008. And so we are in some of the worst housing crises ever. In fact, one of the largest and fastest growing demographics in homelessness is now baby boomers. Okay, so we have that. Then good healthcare. Instead of actually implementing a single payer universal healthcare system that Obama said that he wanted to do, guess what? He did actually a Republican that was corporate centered healthcare bill that was actually first implemented in Massachusetts under Mitt Romney. And so, the Heritage Foundation actually created that system. And so then that's when we got the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. So it was actually a gift to the big corporation, the big health insurance corporations. So they don't believe in that. Good education for your children. No, because college tuitions are, extremely expensive. They're on the rise. And if you really believed in having good education, then you would actually try to implement and getting back to having tuition-free public college for all students across the United States, like we did in the past, right? Who stopped that trend? Well, it was under Ronald Reagan. Well, if Ronald Reagan is supposed to be the devil, as Democrats and liberals like to tout him as, which I agree, Ronald Reagan's a horrible person, but y'all should have tried to reverse that as well and say, well, yeah, no, we need to have tuition-free public colleges and universities. In fact, the guy who was trying to push for that, y'all actually stole the sorry, let me make sure I purse my language very carefully. We're on YouTube. The Democrats rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders in order for him to lose back in 2016. So they don't believe in that as well. and says when it's all said and done, a good retirement. Well, when it comes to the good retirement, Social Security is not going to be solvent. I may not be able to have Social Security by the time I hit 65. On top of that, also, the whole pension system was wiped out because corporations did not want to do pensions anymore. So now we'll have 401ks, but 401ks are subject to the whims of the stock market. And so when Hakeem Jeffries talks about, oh, that's not our highest priority is taking care of affordability, well, he's lying there. He's BSing you. It says Jeffries has hammered Trump multiple times on the issue of affordability and slammed the president for driving up gas costs amid the Iran war. And in January, the president told House Republicans he will be impeached if the party does not win in the midterms. It says earlier this year and months into the war, talk emerged of potentially removing Trump, but efforts have largely been stalled. So it says Democrats subdued their push after acknowledging that they don't have the votes to get it done. So basically they're saying they don't have the votes in order to push for impeaching Trump. But my thing is like, if it's the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do, but they don't want to do it because they're like, well, we just don't have the votes. I mean, first you don't succeed, try again. And so people are like, wait a minute, you don't want to go after Trump after all the things that he's done, the impeachable offenses that he has committed? And this is one of the things I want to hammer down on. Because here's what Hakeem Jeffries said in the past in regards to President Trump. Now, this was, I think, during Trump's first term, if I'm correct. But let me share this with you guys first, because he essentially said this, but I'm just like, wait a minute. What changed, Hakeem? Hakeem, what changed? All right, so let's go here. Here's Hakeem Jeffries on the House floor. This is a few years ago, and we shall talk about it on the other side.
Madam Speaker, I did not come to Congress to impeach Donald Trump, but the constitutional crimes by an out-of-control president inspired by his hatred and the big lie that he told cannot be ignored. Donald Trump is a living, breathing, impeachable offense. It is what it is. The violent attack.
It is what it is. He said he is a living, breathing, impeachable offense. He has done many impeachable offenses. Many. Most of the impeachable offenses, have they actually went after that they legitimately could get him on? No, the Democrats didn't. They rather have gotten him on things like sleeping with a porn star. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys could have got him on some very strong points that literally risk the lives of Americans. And you guys didn't actually want to get him on those. This is the equivalent of somebody being a serial killer, but then you try to arrest them for stealing a sandwich out of a 7-Eleven. What? Like, that's not even a misdemeanor. It's like almost like pay a fine type of crime, right? It's weird. So we have that. But here's something I want to share, right? Because he basically said that he's a living, breathing, impeachable offense, but yet now he's saying it's not his highest priority. Now, this is from the New York City Bar. So this is regarding Venezuela. And we're going to talk about impeachable offenses. I think this is pretty good. It says, as a matter of U.S. constitutional law, the president's actions violate Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which vests in Congress, not the president, the executive power to declare war. They also contravene the War Powers Resolution of 1973, which makes clear that absent an attack on the United States or its armed forces, the president may not initiate hostilities without prior congressional authorization. The administration has identified no statutory authorization for this operation, and its effort to recharacterize a military invasion as a quote-unquote law enforcement action cannot disguise the reality that the president has unilaterally committed U.S. forces against a sovereign nation. This is about Venezuela. The illegality of these actions under international law is equally clear, as Article 2, Section 4 of the United Nations Charter prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Under the United Nations Charter, a nation may not use force on a sovereign territory of another country without its consent, a valid claim of self-defense, or authorization by the United Nations Security Council. None of those conditions are satisfied here. Now, it continues, says the administration's reliance on quote-unquote self-defense to justify its actions in Venezuela, premised on alleged drug trafficking linked to the Venezuelan government, has no basis in international law. The self-defense explanation in Article 51 of the Charter is narrow and applies only to response to an actual or imminent armed attack. Drug trafficking, however, devastating, does not constitute an armed attack under any recognized interpretation of international law. Accepting such a theory would undercut the Charter's central prohibition in covert self-defense from a limited exception into a standing license for unilateral war. So if you want to tackle drug trafficking, you get the police involved, and they need to operate within the borders of said country. You know what I mean? Or work with the drug enforcement agencies of other countries that you wish to clamp down because they're affecting yours. Why are you using the U.S. military in order to carry out law enforcement? And why are you enforcing your laws on a sovereign country, whereas the sovereign country isn't the one that are committing the crimes against yours? You may have some actors within the borders of that country that are doing crimes like shipping drugs in, but let that country handle it. But the United States did that. That is an impeachable offense. And they could impeach Trump on the military attacks on Venezuela. But Hakeem Jeffries isn't, he said impeaching Trump isn't his highest priority. We already know that it's BS that he wants to focus on affordability within the United States. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I have my critiques of Zohran Mamdani. When it comes to actually legitimately critiquing him, I mean, you know, he doesn't have foreign policy. He doesn't have anything to do with foreign policy for the most part. So everything he does is domestic. So if you really want to go after, you know, doing whatever you can to help financially and the cost of living wise for people in your district in New York, then why not support what Zohran Mamdani is doing within the within the city of New York, and developing city-owned grocery stores, trying to push for free buses, maybe talking to Kathy Hochul about that. There was a proposal. I'm not sure if it's been passed into law yet, but he's trying to combat deed theft, which largely affects a lot of Black and brown people who own homes in New York City. I mean, that is great in itself, because then that would stop a lot of the deed theft particularly from Zionists, from taking the homes of Black and brown people, particularly a lot of elderly people within the state of New York. But I don't hear Hakeem Jeffries talking about that. By the way, my grandmother was a victim of deed theft. That's why the family home is no longer in our name. That's just why we have no family home to inherit, because we are victims of deed theft. But I don't hear Hakeem Jeffries championing that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did say something, but please let me know. Now, also could have done some type of impeachment against Iran, right? But has that happened? Because Iran technically is illegal. I mean, the way they went about informing Congress is shoddy at best. Here, it says here from NPR, it says, Glennon believes that the Constitution does not prohibit the president from using armed forces and attacking a country such as Iran unless there is an attack on the United States or the threat of an imminent attack. There was no imminent threat. This was actually brought up and explained by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, when she said that Iran posed no immediate threat to us, as well as I'm blanking on his name. He just resigned. I'm blanking on his name. My apologies. But he was also talking about how there was no imminent threat. And so because there's no imminent threat from Iran, why in the world are we at war with them now? Why did the United States and Israel start a war with them? And just by that very metric, to me, that's an impeachable offense. But Hakeem Jeffries doesn't want to go against him for that. You even have Republicans saying that they needed to invoke the 25th Amendment after the president literally threatened to wipe out Iranian civilization. And you mean to tell me that, impeaching him is not on his highest priority? That's wild to me. That doesn't make any sense. What the heck? Now, let's go here. He says that didn't happen. He says, I conclude, therefore, that this was unconstitutional. Now, he says he acknowledges that, generally speaking, the requirement under the 1973 resolution to consult Congress has been complied with, but in some circumstances, Congress has been informed ahead of time rather than consulted. That's not what the War Powers Resolution contemplated. So, of course, he basically didn't say, oh, well, I need you guys to agree that we should go to war with Iran. It's not that. It's basically, I'm going with the war with Iran. I'm just letting y'all know in advance. It should be the decision of Congress to declare war, not the president. Right? Because there's supposed to be a governing body that represents the people. It's not supposed to be his unilateral decision or decision of him and some military advisors, the Joint Chiefs, and the people who are part of the military industrial complex who honestly really want this war so that they can make more money. It shouldn't be that way. And yet here we are. So this is why I say, really, it is illegal. He says it's not really illegal, but I think it is. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but it's a technicality, right? My question, though, is if Trump is as dangerous as Jeffrey says, then why not impeach him, especially after holding a meeting with House members discussing the 25th Amendment? So on the 25th of this month, he actually held a meeting with House members. You share this. It says Hakeem Jeffries schedules a Friday 25th Amendment briefing against Trump. Right? It says talk of invoking the 25th Amendment is reemerging among House Democrats after more than a year of dismissing speculation that they would seek to remove Trump from power for a third time. Rather than quash the discussion, House Democratic leadership appears to be encouraging it. On Wednesday, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries scheduled a Friday briefing on the 25th Amendment for his caucus to be hosted by Representative Jamie Raskin and House Judiciary Committee Democrats. The announcement came after President Donald Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, with administration officials hailing the success of Operation Epic Fury. Jeffries torched Trump's threats issued earlier this week to wipe out Iran's civilization and unleash hell on Tehran. So, yeah. So he literally met with House Democrats in order to discuss that. And so if he's so dangerous, why not say, hey, you know what? Let's not do that. Right? And so why hasn't he said that? Because ultimately he actually does agree with Trump for a lot of things. He just doesn't want to admit it because he's not actually real opposition. Most of the Democrats are not. So let's go here. So we're not going to watch this entire thing, but here's him meeting with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
Welcome back, and joining me now is House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Leader Jeffries, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good morning. Great to be back.
It's great to have you back. Let's start with the war in Iran. The United States now a week into this conflict. Do you think the world is safer now that the supreme leader is dead?
Well, certainly as it relates to the Ayatollah, he was a bad actor, and I'm not going to shed any tears as a result of his departure. I think the big question is, why did we get into this war? What are our strategic objectives? Because they shift every day. And what is the plan to get out of this conflict? The American people don't want to see billions of dollars being spent to bomb Iran and the Middle East, while at the same period of time, my Republican colleagues and this president are unwilling to spend a dime to lower their grocery bills, spend a dime to actually make it more affordable to go see a doctor, or do anything about this affordability crisis that is very real in the United States of America.
So we already talked about how, Hakeem Jeffries, when he says things like that, he's really just, pulling your leg. He doesn't actually believe in these things because he's not actually fighting for them, especially when it comes to about affordability, things like, a real true single payer healthcare system, which to me is a half measure. I think we should have a full nationalized healthcare system, but he does not even tackle that. And so, when it comes to the money, being able to push for things like that, like where was this fire and vigor when Joe Biden was president? Like, it's like, keep that same energy for Joe Biden, but he didn't, right? He didn't make those demands. And so this is why I feel like Hakeem Jeffries should really be challenged. But he should be challenged by somebody who's outside of the Democratic Party, because I don't think that anybody in the Democratic Party really would really be a sufficient challenge against him, because that party is just corrupt. So let's continue on.
Well, in talking about the strategy for this war, let me ask you, because NBC News is reporting that President Trump has privately considered sending boots on the ground to Iran. Is there any scenario where you would support sending U.S. forces to be on the ground in Iran, Leader Jeffries?
No, and in fact, candidate Trump suggested that under no circumstances should American servicemen and women be put into harm's way in this particular type of situation, particularly as it relates to another endless war in the Middle East. And we are deeply saddened right now by the loss of 6 brave and heroic servicemen and women who have already lost their lives, and will continue to pray for their families and their loved ones. But the American
Hang on. Did he ever express his sorrow over the over 167 people, particularly mostly little girls between the ages of 7 and 12, that were bombed in a school in Manab in southern Iran? Just a rhetorical question. Because yes, right, those people who were service members that were murdered, Donald Trump's, their blood is on his hands. But also those over 160 people as well, particularly mostly little girls. Oh, we have to protect the women in Iran. They don't actually believe that. I mean, who built that Tomahawk missile? How much did that Tomahawk missile cost? And how much are they going to make because that Tomahawk missile needs to be replaced? That bomb, those 160 lives, that snuffed out the life out of those 160 people, particularly those little girls. Just a thought, just a question.
people deserve answers from the administration as to how we're going to actually move forward in a way that makes America safer, not more vulnerable.
Well, there is a push for congressional oversight, but both the House and the Senate this week rejected a resolution to curb President Trump's war powers in Iran. And frankly, even 5 Democrats joined Republicans to block the resolution in those chambers. Does that effectively give President Trump a mandate to fight this war?
Not at all. The president, of course, has a responsibility, first and foremost, to make his case to the American people, which he's failed to do. There's a reason why this president is deeply unpopular. His policies, including the one big ugly bill, are unpopular. And this war of choice in the Middle East are unpopular. As Democrats, we're going to continue to make the case to the American people that we should be stewards of spending their taxpayer dollars in a manner that actually is designed to make their life better and make their life more affordable, as opposed to another endless war in the Middle East where we're spending billions and billions of dollars to drop bombs and doing nothing to drop the high cost of living.
Well,
So was this argument made when Joe Biden was giving billions of dollars to Ukraine? Also, he never said that he disagreed with the Iran war. Did you catch that? He never disagreed with the Iran war. He just doesn't like how President Trump is going about it. Remember when I said they're more focused on style rather than substance. They're more focused on process than the action itself. Keep your eyes peeled.
Your Democratic colleague, Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, is among those who voted to block the resolution. I want to read you a little bit of his statement from this week. He says, quote, "The president has so far acted within the authorities given to him by Congress through the War Powers Act of 1973. He has been briefing Congress, and he has 60 days to make his case for ongoing operations. This is not an illegal war, but it could become one." How do you respond to your House colleague?
Well, every individual member, of course, is going to articulate their position. The overwhelming majority of both House and Senate Democrats have made the case to the American people and taken the position that this is a war of choice that Donald Trump decided to get into without any evidence being presented to us as members of Congress or to the American people.
But do you agree with Golden? It's not an illegal war yet?
To protect the national security of the American people. No, Jared obviously has a very different position. He's a hero. He fought in the Middle East bravely, and he's entitled, of course, to his perspective. But as
Hakeem Jeffries just said he thought it was an illegal war. If this is an illegal war, shouldn't you impeach Donald Trump for it? but that's not his highest priority. Same bullshit. Same bullshit. And we'll get into why he won't in a second. My gosh.
As I indicated, the American people are dissatisfied with this war of choice that Donald Trump has decided to enter into. And Donald Trump has not made a compelling case as to why we are in a situation where American servicemen and women, their lives are at risk.
Let's talk about the cost of this war, Leader Jeffries. The White House is reportedly weighing a request to Congress for tens of millions of dollars. Several Senate Democrats have said they're open to reviewing what the administration requests, arguing could be critical to military readiness overall. As the leader of House Democrats, do you plan to block all Pentagon funding, even if the argument is it is critical for military readiness?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in terms of...
Wait, what? Remember what I just said? Where what I just said, y'all?
Yes.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in terms of if the administration makes a request to Congress to consider additional funding. But at this particular point in time, the administration has failed to make its case as to the rationale or justification for this war of choice in the Middle East. Listen, candidate Trump...
So, no, he's not going to say no to an additional $50 billion to continue to fund this war. This war that he thinks is illegal, that he refuses to impeach Trump on, he will still give money for the war that he thinks is illegal, that Trump should be impeached on. He's gonna go, I'll allow it. I'll still pay for you to do this or this obscenely horrible thing, even though, it is disgusting that you're doing this, but we'll still pay for it. Child. This is why we call him AIPAC Shakur, because he is a tool of Israel. No, really. Hakeem Jeffries is a tool of Israel. He has gotten millions of dollars from AIPAC. Let's take a look. This is from AIPAC Tracker. Hakeem Jeffries supports unlimited weapons for Israel. This isn't about just Trump. This is about making sure that Israel gets what they want. Not Black Americans, not Black people, Israel. $5,524,449 spent by pro-Israel lobby groups and their donors. He got over $1.4 million from PACs, and from lobby donors, he got over $4 million. He is corrupt. Hakeem Jeffries is a black face in a high place that he doesn't care about you. Black people, I need y'all to understand that I said the Democratic Party is just like the Republican Party. They will smile in your face and stab you in the back. At least the Republican Party will stab you in the front, but the Democratic Party, they stab you in the back. Right? And the crazy part is Hakeem Jeffries is more in line with Trump than you think. Let's share this, because this was a huge story that came out about how the Congressional Black Caucus actually is okay with Americans being spied on. This was out of the American Prospect. Congressional Black Caucus to support spying powers used on Black Lives Matter activists. The Congressional Black Caucus will support the clean reauthorization of FISA Section 702, a warrantless surveillance authority that has been used to spy on African Americans. So Black people, if you guys aren't paying attention, the Congressional Black Caucus does not give a damn about you. And who is one of the top people in the Congressional Black Caucus says the decision by the CBC is just one example of tremendous power of intelligence community has exerted year after year to renew surveillance powers it says are essential to national security. On Friday, the CIA disclosed those powers not only played a role in foiling an ISIS-connected terror plot targeting Taylor Swift concert in Austria in 2024, but also augmented Mexico's operation against late kingpin of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Now, all that aside, here's the thing, right? The CIA, the same alphabet letter agency that has also installed dictators in other countries so that the corporations will have control over those countries instead, that same country. Let me share something with you about the CBC. Here's this from Congressional Black Caucus. This is actually from the government website right here, right? It says the CBC engaged at the highest levels of Congress with members who serve in House leadership. Representative Hakeem Jeffries serves as leader of the House Democratic Caucus. Representative Joe Neguse serves as assistant Democratic leader. Representative Robin Kelly serves as co-chair of the House Democratic Steering and Policy Committee. And Representative Lauren Underwood and Representative Maxwell Frost, my congressperson, serve as co-chairs of the House Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. In addition, 5 CBC members serve as chairs for full House committees, and 25 CBC members serve as chairs of House subcommittees. While the CBC has predominantly been made up of members of the Democratic Party, the founding members of the caucus envisioned a nonpartisan organization. Consequently, the CBC has a long history of bipartisan collaboration and members who are both Democrats and Republican. As founding member Representative William L. Clay Sr. said, the CBC was established, quote, "Black people have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests," end quote. But what interest is it? What interest is it for Black people if you are authorizing and standing behind mass surveillance of Black activists who are fighting for Black liberation? So the Congressional Black Caucus is a farce. All the world is a stage, and you have your players. And the Zionists got their hands up, Hakeem Jeffries behind, and says, "Hello, my name is AIPAC Shakur. I'm here to fight for you when it comes to your cost of living. Now, I'm going to take these billions of dollars and give it to Israel." Oh, that's basically what it is. I'm like, wait. You're giving all this money to Israel, but you're talking about you're supposed to be fighting for us. Some may write. And that should cause you to pause, right? So, Hakeem Jeffries leads the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, when I say both parties are trash, the Democrats pose as the opposition, and then they finger wag about the way Trump goes about doing things, but not actually about what he does. Hakeem Jeffries is just on his bullshit. And he's acting to appear like he's against Trump and his policies. But they are all the same policies that make Americans suffer. In reality, he actually agrees with them, and he's trying to play a role in keeping us dependent on either party to uphold this facade of opposition. Stay away from AIPAC Shakur, guys. Go ahead and give you a like the stream. Thank you so very much. We're going to get into our final segment. Let me check to see if we have any. Okay, we're good on Rumble. Let me check to see just in case we have anything on Kick. If we do, then great. If not, then that's okay. So we're good on Kick side. Thank you very much. All right, so let's go into this. Game.film, good to see you. Game.film said, oh, that's about the next segment. Never mind. we will go back to that. But yes. Roger Meadow says, I can't believe I agree with Hakeem on this. Most people think impeachment means removal when all it means indictment by a grand jury of House, showing there's enough evidence in the House to hold a Senate trial where it takes 66 senators to convict. Impeachment is a waste of time. I understand that. At the same time, it's like, okay, but he's been ringing about how terrible Trump is, and now he's like, well, I don't want to focus on that. But my thing is, like, his reasoning is really still BS, because he's not actually trying to focus on pushing for anything affordable for us, right? In fact, he's trying to make Israel's life better, not ours, right? He's not focused on us. So it's just, he's just full of it. Edward says Trump's illegal war on Iran should be the most evident for impeachment, but the Democrats favor the war too. Yeah, exactly. Holly says Councilmember Chai Osei was arrested at the death protest. I think I saw that. Yes. Edward says Joe Kent. I don't know why I was thinking of the name Kevin, but yes, Joe Kent. That's what I was thinking about. Thank you so very much. I should have looked at the chat, but I wasn't thinking. And yes, agreed, Hakeem. It's not an affordability crisis; it's an income inequality crisis. You see. Jacqueline says can't stand Dems, but surely even they can manage to impeach president and tackle the cost of living at the same time. I think they can. They just don't want to. Cowboy Kitty says negative charisma on purpose. Yeah. All right, guys. So we're going to move on to the final segment, because I really want to get into this, because I want to make sure that I'm not too far over time, but I'm already over time now. But let's get into the final segment that we're going to be getting into. So, of course, we talked about credit redlining. Then we talked about AIPAC Shakur, aka Hakeem Jeffries, or should I say Hakeem Jeffries, aka AIPAC Shakur. But now we're going to be talking about blame it on Ukraine. So all I got is one question. Hang on. Let me make sure I have everything set up, because that is important, James. And this one's going to be pretty easy. All right. Because I got to make sure. I cannot believe Hakeem Jeffries behind. His trifling ass. Oh my gosh. I didn't even bring up how Polymarket is like, oh yeah, they think they think that he's going to be impeached. Okay. And we're also going to debunk Tim Pool as well. Let me see. All right. So let's get into this. So I asked a question about Tim Pool. What? Blaming on Ukraine. Yeah. So Tim Pool decided to have a debate with a comedian. And this debate really just sparked my interest, because I was just like, wait a minute, what in the world is Tim Pool talking about? And then he says some stuff. I was like, what the hell? And so I really need to get into this, y'all, because this Tim Pool is wrong on so many things, but it's just really apparent that he is a a bootlicker of Zionists. He's just a Zionist bootlicker. So let's get into this. The comedian is Leonarda Joni, who's talking to him, and she captions it, says, "It's illegal to criticize certain foreign governments." Oh boy, let's get into this, y'all.
There are 38 states that have anti-BDS laws. Are you kidding me? I thought this was the country of free speech. I thought this is the country of free association.
What do those laws do?
They make it so that if you work in the government, you cannot protest Israel. You can't boycott them.
If you work in the government?
That's correct. If you're like a government contractor.
You mean if you're a private company that does government contracting?
That's correct.
You can't boycott Israel.
That's correct. You can't boycott Israel.
I disagree with that.
So that's why you can't just be like, oh, people are just crazy.
No, they are though.
No, hold on. You can't just be like, oh, they're just seeing Jews everywhere.
They are.
When there is literally laws that protect Israel in a way that don't even protect Americans. Like here, Texas, fucking Texas, okay? There's a little tiny city of San Marcos, which is so small, okay? Every state, every city makes a contribution to Israel. San Marcos was going through their budget. They realized, holy shit, we're giving this much money to Israel. It wasn't a huge amount because they're tiny. And they go, you know what? We got potholes. We don't want to do that. So we object. You know what Governor Abbott said? We're going to withhold any funding from you if you do that.
Sounds like a
Okay, so yes, the fealty to Israel is true because I know Florida is a huge contributor, so much so that Florida actually was issuing bonds for Israel, and because of the status of Israel going down, those bonds, their ratings actually went lower. And according to Florida law, they are not allowed to invest in any bonds where the credit rating, I think, is below A. And so because Israel's credit ratings went down, Florida basically said, okay, we're not going to pay attention to the ratings anymore. We're just not going to pay attention to the ratings anymore. So we can still keep funding Israel. Yeah. In fact, one of the counties that is actually the biggest funder of Israel in all of Florida is Palm Beach County. There are two famous people that have residences in Palm Beach County: Jeffrey Epstein and Donald John Trump. So yes, there's a lot of validity to what she's saying, especially in regards to how BDS is considered to be illegal within the United States. Boycott, divestment, and sanction. You cannot boycott Israel. You cannot divest. And then by law, they're not allowed to sanction Israel. What other country has that law? What other country, like if you want to do boycott, divestment, and sanction against China, are you allowed to do that? What if boycott, divestment, and sanction to Brazil? Boycott, divestment, and sanction against Mexico? Boycott, divestment, and sanction against Italy? Are you allowed to do that for any other country? Yes. Okay, so why is Israel the exception? Why do they get special treatment? Why is a country why is this area allowed to do this while they are literally committing a genocide of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, Iranians? Why are they allowed to do this and still be able to have a special place within American policy. Even in our domestic policy, we can't do anything against them that is financial. Let's continue on.
Texas thing. So
it's not just here.
So the point, we don't disagree on that issue. The issue is you've identified a circumstance which is objectionable.
That's
and
correct.
Then extrapolated all other foreign policy to this thing.
Check the answer out. I asked the chat. It says there are no U.S. states with laws that prohibit speaking critically about Chinese. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects freedom of speech, including the right to criticize foreign governments.
That's not BDS, though.
So I replaced the word China with Israel. Yes, there are 38 states. It tells you, and the reason you can't criticize China because of the First Amendment. 38 states, you can't speak critically about Israel. So, sorry, Tim, I didn't want to waste time with this.
But BDS is relating to government contracting with Israel.
I'm sorry if I don't like the erasure of American freedoms, freedom of speech being the number one, because I'm a fucking comedian and there is shit that they canceled me for, not about Israel, other racial jokes, right? And people actually feel like if I say something that offends their sensibilities, they have a right to physically attack me. Now you tell me how we're supposed to go forward as an American country with freedom of speech and liberty when you literally are training 50% of the population to think that violence is a perfectly...
You carry a gun.
So do they.
What violence are you referring to? I missed that. I'm sorry.
Well, when people, I've made jokes that have pissed people off, and I've literally had people send me death threats, say they're coming to my show and they're going to kill me.
Yeah, you're a lightweight. You're a fucking lightweight.
I know you said that, but what I'm saying is,
I think the Ukrainians control everything.
So that's happening on an emotional, social level. But then our own government is actually passing laws to make your freedom of speech.
There are people in government that are stepping over the line when it comes to things like, speaking about, you can't make this joke, you can't make these remarks, you have to protect people from anti-Semitism. I think that any of those laws, any regulation about what people are allowed to say or what jokes people can make, those are all ridiculous. But there is a difference between when there's people that are passing laws and the stuff that you're talking about if people are making threats because they don't like what you're saying.
I fully agree, but I think our culture is being shaped top down.
I think the Ukrainians have been controlling everything from the beginning. I mean, have you ever stopped to think about?
Wait, what did he just say?
I think the Ukrainians have been controlling everything from the beginning.
What? Ukraine? Dude, is that beanie on too tight? Because how in the world did you get Ukraine out of all this and say, oh, I think Ukraine's been controlling everything? Did Ukraine bomb the USS Liberty? And then our government just said, oh, nothing to see here? Was it that? Was Ukraine the one that was murdering Palestinians in the 1980s and they actually had to get Ronald Reagan to call him up on the phone to tell him to stop it? Is there a PAC in Ukraine that is not registered as a foreign agent within our government that is actually controlling our politicians? Is there a Ukrainian PAC that does that? Political Action Committee? Are there Ukrainian lobbyists that are controlling our government en masse to the tune of billions of dollars? Is there a Ukrainian controlled Congress member? Tim, what in the world are you on right now? It's not UPAC, it's AIPAC. I'm sorry, it's not AUPAC, AUPAC. It's AIPAC. So my thing is like, it's not U Street, it's J Street. It's not Khufu, it's Kufi. It's crazy. Like, as we continue, we're going to debunk what he's saying right here. This is the part that just got me like, what? The delusionary of it all. I know that's not a word, but I'm just.
I mean, have you ever stopped to think about it? We have given. Okay, so you plug your ears. Please. We have given Ukraine more money in 2 years than we've given Israel in 70.
Okay.
Okay, he said we have given more money to Ukraine in 2 years than we given to in 70. Google is free. Google is free. Let's take a look, because I really want to share this with y'all, because I just took a look. I just wanted to pierce into the Google machine and see how much the U.S. has given. Just Google search. Quick, easy, simple, right? Okay. AI overview. It says, as of late 2025, the United States has allocated approximately $188 billion in total spending related to the war in Ukraine since the 2022 Russian invasion. However, this figure represents authorized funding, not all of which is directly sent to Ukraine. And then you talk about the breakdown, right? And that's out of the Council of Foreign Relations, right? And it says about 188 billion and then 127 billion, right? So let's take a look at Israel, right? Let's take a look about how much we've given to Israel. He said since we've given 70 years to Israel. All right. Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid since World War II, having received over $300 billion, adjusted for inflation, in total economic and military assistance since 1948. As of April 2026, the United States typically provides $3.8 billion in annual military aid to Israel, but recent conflicts have driven this amount significantly, right? It says total aid since October 7, 2023, at least $16.3 billion in direct military aid has been enacted, with reports suggesting the total support, including arms transfers, could exceed $21 billion. Emergency funding, Congress authorized over $14 billion in emergency assistance in April 2024 to support Israel's military operations. Missile defense included in the totals roughly $6.7 billion dedicated to missile defense systems such as the Iron Dome and David Sling. So, 10-year memorandum of understanding. The current agreement from 2019 to 2028 commits $38 billion, composed of $33 billion in foreign military financing and $5 billion from missile defense. And so, this is how much we're giving Israel. So even if we went conservatively, right? You want to say it's equal, right? But it could be argued that we've given Israel more. And so he's trying to make the case and say, well, Ukraine got more. Nah, bruh. We've given Israel more. Remember what Joe Biden said? If there were no Israel, the United States would have to create an Israel. Because it's not about Israel's interests. It's about the interests of the United States. That's what it's about. Anywho, let's continue on. This guy, my God.
Did you know that? Did you know that we have our members of Congress, each and every one of them, waving Ukrainian flags in our Congress?
Thank you.
They wave Israeli flags. Waving a Ukrainian flag isn't necessarily, oh, we give more money or there's more control. There's also Israeli flags. How many people are funded by AIPAC? Tim, are you serious right now? Damn, they got you by the throat, don't they? Oh my God.
Tim, thanks for that. I appreciate this.
You don't care about that.
No.
You literally don't care that our members of Congress are flying Ukrainian flags.
This doesn't fit with my paradigm of reality, so I'm going to just leave it out.
So it just doesn't happen.
Oh, so you're a liberal now.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
There you go. We flip right here on set.
The liberal order just wants the whole area. I don't
Okay,
think
so
they care
you're
what-
wrong
No,
because
I
you don't
blame-
read.
I
There
blame,
are actually several states that have comparable anti-BDS laws for China. Indeed.
Yeah, okay, where are they?
So let's start with Texas. Texas prohibits companies that from working with companies like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea specifically.
Prohibits working with those companies?
Yes.
Okay, that's not the same thing as an anti-BDS law, Tim. Stop being disingenuous.
No. Okay. If you're so you're saying
it prohibits you from working with those companies.
Working with them.
Right. It does not prohibit you from protesting.
Don't I have a right to do business? Like the point that I was addressing was, don't we have freedom of speech? Shouldn't I be allowed to contract with a country that we're not at war with?
You should have freedom.
Should you be allowed to do a business as a contractor with a country we are not at war with?
It depends.
Okay, hang on. If money equals speech, right? If money equals speech and we have freedom of speech, then we should, by definition, be able to conduct business with any country that we want to outside of our own borders. Let's put logic on the table. Because if I want to do business with the DPRK, if I have a business, I should be able to, because if money equals speech, it was determined that by the Supreme Court, then I should be able to do business with DPRK. I should be able to do business with Venezuela. I should be able to do business with China. I should be able to do business with Vietnam, Singapore, Burkina Faso. It doesn't matter. But I can't. Why? Does money actually equal speech in the United States? Is my freedom of speech being suppressed? Is what the Supreme Court actually ruled bullshit? Don't tell them. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. Oh my goodness. Let them figure out for themselves. My God. My God.
I think.
No?
I think it depends. I think
So
it
no
really
freedom.
depends.
No freedom.
No. Hold on. This whole thing with should a person who has land in the middle of Texas be allowed to sell it to some Chinese investor who wants to come in and build a freaking Muslim thing for some reason to subvert? Should he be allowed to do that? No. Fuck it.
If they want to build a mosque, like this is where she lost me. Like if they want to build a mosque, okay. How is that endangering us? How is that endangering us at all? I mean, I thought as long as you got the green, isn't that really the way of the United States? Right? They're not actually a threat to us, by the way. Count how many military bases that China has around the world. They are not a threat.
No, he shouldn't. But your government should not be able to tell you that you can't protest another country. There's a difference.
But it's not for everybody. It's just for people that have government contracts, right? That's what the anti-BDS.
I think a lot of that stuff came about with Harvard, et cetera, accepting government grants and also having massive protests
which
on their campuses.
I'm in total
leading to violence, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you that people should be able to say whatever they want. Like I completely agree. Any kind of like laws.
These are private contractors who have a government contract.
Yeah. So and I think that even if they work for a private contractor, they should be able to say, I don't think the U.S. should be supporting this or what have you. But at the same time, I'm extremely like pro preventing like communists from coming to the U.S. I like the idea of prohibiting.
Selected one in New York.
Yeah.
Communists coming, baby. Many of them were born here. What the heck are you talking about? Oh, the communists coming to you, as if it's some foreign concept. My gosh. First of all, somebody needs to explain to this entire group what communism actually is, not what they think it is, and they're going by a capitalist interpretation of what it actually is. They actually have a communist on in order to be able to educate them on that. See, this is the crazy part when people talk about things that they don't know the actual definitions of. And by the way, for anybody who wants to come into the comments and be like, oh, well, communism is when you have an iPhone. You really need to do your research first before you start coming in trying to educate an actual communist on what communism is. Because number one of the things that you should learn is an economic system like capitalism and communism and socialism is different from commerce. Capitalism and commerce are not inherently linked. You can literally have commerce in a socialist system. So let's get definitions right. Let's actually know what words mean before we start to use them. That's the entire group. I'm just saying. Whew.
Well, I mean, yeah, he is a DSA.
I actually don't think he is.
Member of the DSA.
If you look at what he's been doing in New York.
Okay, so they called Zoran Mamdani a communist. That is the most uneducated analysis of a local politician I have heard in a long time. Number one, Zoran Mamdani is not a communist. Number two, Zoran Mamdani is not even a socialist. He's a democratic socialism, which socialism is inherently democratic because it actually has workers owning the means of production and distribution. And it also means that they, as they own the means of production, they operate in a democratic fashion, which means socialism is inherently democratic. It is actually in the definition. But anyways, Zoran Mamdani calling himself a democratic socialist means that he just wants to put guardrails on capitalism, or he arguably you could say he's a social democrat. But that's basically it. He is nowhere near being an actual socialist or a communist. So when people talk about, oh my God, he's a communist, no, he's not. Talk to the real communists. They'll tell you, oh no, Zoran Mamdani is not a communist. I classify him more as a social democrat. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of huge critiques of him. Has he done some things in the right direction for the working class? I will contest. I will not contest. I will concede, yes, right? They're small, but it is a step in the right direction. I will say that. But at the same time, he is nowhere near being a communist. Not at all. So this is why it's important for people to know the definitions of words before they start saying them. And here's the thing. Everybody at that table got a phone. Everybody at that table can actually look it up on the Google machine and go, what is the definition of this? So that's a whole nother thing. Anyways.
It's like raising the taxes on the poor. And
that's communism.
It's not raising the taxes on the poor. I'm sorry.
Communism.
Yeah, I think it's red.
You know, no, maybe.
Red, green.
No, communism is not raising the taxes on the poor. Right? It's if you own the means of production, and if you own democratically own and operate the means of production, that means that you democratically own and operate the government as well collectively, right? And also, the taxes aren't just on the poor and the rich, right? The people who actually have the most give the most. So therefore, the people who are the biggest earners, like you, Tim Pool, are the ones who should contribute more, right? And the quote, the famous quote is each according to his ability and each according to his need. So You guys are actually describing capitalism, not communism. Because who pays the least amount of taxes under this capitalist system? The rich. James, you got to get through this video.
But it's having the inverse effect of like he's attacking the people. Well, yeah, you know, you're right. You guys are completely right. That is communism.
That is communism.
He's gutting the people who voted for him.
Always ends up destroying the poor.
Yeah, it's the red green.
No, to my point, here's the thing. There aren't even equivalent laws for government contractors to not be able to protest the U.S., this country.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff where, like, when it comes to like
okay,
home
but don't
stuff,
you think that's why would we all of a sudden have a special regulation for this one country?
There shouldn't.
So,
like
so
I said,
again,
I agree with you. I don't think there should be special prohibitions on people that want to support like BDS. Boycott, divest,
I will say very plainly, I've never agreed with these laws. I've criticized Florida when they were putting these things out. But again, that still falls in the framework of the U.S. government is mandating U.S. people support their military operations.
Yeah, and
you've inverted it.
Hold on. Because if that was true, then you would have similar laws for private contractors who have a government contract to not be able to protest.
Yeah, there's no big movements at universities to boycott Ukraine.
And there
but this is also about.
So they don't need that.
Okay.
And when it comes to government, it is honest to say that when it comes to government employees, there are different rules to have contractors. And now, again, I don't think that Israel should be singled out to be protected, but
it's the only country. They don't even have it for this own country, for our own fucking country.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like Israel gets special treatment. We don't get special treatment. We don't. Israel and Zionists get better treatment than Black Americans. And we are the ones that suffered a 400-year genocide. Yes, let's call it the way it is. Let's not sugarcoat anything. It was a 400-year genocide of slavery and subjugation that has continued. It should not be that people like me and my cousins are the first generation in our family to be born with full rights in this country. It should not be that way, but it is. Jewish people weren't barred by Jim Crow laws like we are. They weren't. They were absorbed into whiteness. There are some people who I find out they're Jewish and I didn't know they were Jewish at all. Like, for instance, how many of y'all knew Marianne Williamson was Jewish before she actually said it? How many of y'all knew? I sure as hell didn't know. I just saw a white woman. And does she have the privilege? Yeah, bet she does. And so here's the thing, right? When it comes to BDS and Israel having special treatment, they have special treatment all up the wazoo. Look at who vouches for them. You have House Speaker Mike Johnson. You got Chuck Schumer. You have all these senators, all the presidents, right? Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, they were all big supporters of Israel. When Donald Trump criticized Vladimir Zelensky in front of cameras, people were like, oh, snap, he's laying down the gauntlet on Zelensky. But he never said anything like that to Netanyahu. Never, ever. He wouldn't dare speak to Netanyahu the way he spoke to Zelensky. Because he knows exactly where his bread is buttered. How many billionaires from Ukraine that had dumped money into Biden, Harris, Trump, Obama? How many billionaires that were Ukrainian that have dumped money into politicians versus Israeli or Zionist? Okay, quick. Name a Ukrainian billionaire that has influenced our elections. Go. Now, name one. Come on, clock is ticking. Name one. Have you? No, don't go on Google. No. Now, name one billionaire that is Zionist, that is donated, that has bribed our politicians. Okay? Go. Robert Kraft, Miriam Adelson, her late husband Sheldon Adelson. What's his name? He's the Democratic one. He does like the dude with the Democrats. I'm blanking on his name. You have all these different billionaires that also George Soros. That's what I wanted to say. Like, you could just name off the top of your head largely because you know who they are. And here's the thing. I want people to realize that Tim Pool is bought and paid for by Israel. Allegedly. Let's take a look at here. Because I want you guys to really know how deep this goes. So this is from the Jewish Insider. It says Netanyahu pushes back on anti-Israel trend. So let's take a look at this, right? This is last year. It says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tried to push back against anti-Israel trends in the right-wing media world by holding a briefing on Monday in the Blair House for podcasters and other media figures, sources told Jewish Insider on Tuesday. Among those in attendance were podcasters including Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, writers Bethany Mandel and David J. Harris Jr., influencers Jessica Krause, commentary senior editor Seth Mandel, and Federalist editor-in-chief Molly Hemingway. Says in addition to Netanyahu, his diplomatic advisor Ophir Falk, and Israeli ambassador to U.S. Yechiel Leader were present on the Israeli side. Tim Pool expressed concerns about increased anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the pro-Trump podcasting space, according to sources in the room. Pool famously had Kanye West on his podcast, and the rapper walked out mid-interview after Pool pushed back against anti-Semitic comments. Responding to Pool, Netanyahu said that the reason he invited the group, that is the reason he invited the group to meet with him. Tim Pool asked if there was a Qatari op to manipulate social media algorithms. By the way, Qatar is actually a U.S. ally, but that's neither here nor there. To manipulate social media algorithms to make anti-Semitic and anti-Israel episodes appear to receive an outsized number of views in order to incentivize podcasters and YouTubers to produce more anti-Semitic content. Netanyahu, however, was non-committal in his response, saying only that it's possible. The prime minister emphasized the context of Qatar as well as Iran and Israel, and that the U.S. share the same adversaries. Iran, Netanyahu said, wants to destroy both the U.S. and Israel. But even still, he said that. But who did the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, say was not a threat? It was Iran. So therefore, if Iran's not actually a credible threat, why is Netanyahu saying this? Because he wants to grow Israel into the Greater Israel Project. Because the Greater Israel Project means that they're expanding the settler colonial state and taking over the entire region so that they can hold all the resources. That's what it's about. It was never about safety for Jewish people. It was always about power for the Epstein class. Now, This is exactly why it is important that we look at who is influenced by what. Tim Pool saying this is ridiculous because ultimately he's a puppet. He's a puppet with independent media veneer. There are a lot of people who are in independent media who aren't independent at all, but they like to play like they are. And so this is why I say support real independent media. Support real people who are citizen journalists out there. And there are ones that you can support that are also Jewish, right? One person that comes to mind, Chuck Modi. Another person, oh my gosh, I have his face in my head. But you can also support people like Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, right? You can oh my gosh, it's gonna bother me if I don't actually host a Redacted tonight. Lee Camp. Support people like that. Like if you want to support Jewish voices that are in independent media, like, you know, people like that, right? Support content creators that are actually doing the work. Like for instance, Right Brain Studios, one of the creators, Kevin Ronka, Jewish. Support Right Brain TV, right? My thing is like, if we're going to support independent media, support real independent media, not just these independent media that they say or they act like they're independent media. Ones who have all these followers and then they seem to always still either toe the line or lean on the side of wanting to defend Zionism in some way, shape, or form, or it seems shaky at best. So Tim Pool was sounding like a damn fool. And keep in mind and always make sure to not keep in mind that not everybody in this space is an honest actor and they have an objective. Everybody has a bias, but some are more propped up than others. All right, guys, I am very late, but please go ahead and give a like to the stream. Let's take a look at the chat, and then we're almost on our way out. I want to share this Game.film, who's also independent media, a guy in independent media, you know, support his channel too, says Tim Pool is trash human being. Oh, no, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Ben Norton. I don't know if Ben Norton is Jewish. If he is, then yeah, support him too. I mean, yeah. Eleanor Goldfield, absolutely. Yes, Katie Halper, definitely. Let me see. Roger Meadow says anti-BDS laws say companies refusing to do business with Israel will be barred from state contracts. Mm-hmm. Yep. Let me see. Okay. But yeah, the fact that he was able to meet with Netanyahu, y'all don't find that suspicious? Yes, Holly. A lot of them dropped the Ukrainian flags. I mean, the promotion of Nazism is a valid reason for dropping the flags, but I mean, the Democrats the damage is already done. But yeah. Oh yes, thank you so much, Abby Martin. Yes. Thank you so very much for that too. But yeah, right. So yes, guys. And also support this channel. I'm not Jewish, but my thing is like I try to bring, the news and opinion to you guys, especially in a system like this. But yeah. And if you guys have, make sure to like on your way out. But I have to get going, and I appreciate you guys tuning in for this stream. I'm gonna be real with y'all. It's getting rough out there. Woo, it's getting rough right now. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also support the channel. Thank you so very much for that. Yes, thank you very much, Max Blumenthal, as well. Please continue to support independent media as much as you possibly can. And all of us, for instance, Jamal Thomas, Garland Nixon, Savvy Sabs, support people like that, Danny Haifong, support those of us who are doing our best to be as independent as possible. We are grassroots, real grassroots. And you guys see, I don't have thousands of dollars. Hell, I don't have hundreds of dollars. Baby, I don't have tens of dollars. I'm broke, very broke. But, we do this because it's a labor of love, and we really do want a better system for all. I am going to end with a funny video because I owe you guys one. And I just wanted to make sure that I got one in because you guys, I owe you one. And I also want to make sure that it's, I want to make sure you guys have something to laugh at because I know a lot of times we cover heavy topics and you guys are really awesome audience. And the least I can do is make sure you guys laugh at the last couple minutes of the video. So I'm gonna play this, and don't you guys judge me too harshly, but you're gonna laugh. All right, and then we're out. So let me share this with y'all. Okay, so let me see. All right, let's go.
See, I'm back at Bush's. Got me a big barbecue Bush's sandwich. Got me a big cup of Bush's juice. A lot of folks said I was saying it wrong. Said it's Bucky's. Boy, didn't y'all go to school? If the E comes after a C, it's an S sound. Like succeed. And Bush's does a lot of succeeding. Say it with me. Bush's. You got to put your neck into it. Bush's. Hell, you ain't got to take my word for it. I brought in an expert.
Justin, you're saying it perfectly, and I am what some people refer to as a bussy connoisseur.
Domino's. I'm super excited to try their new slice sauce. I'm so excited for this slice sauce. So today I got chicken and banana peppers. And we're going to try it with some of this slice sauce, the ideal sauce for your slice. So this is what it looks like. That slice sauce is bust. It has a little bit of zest. Dipping my crust in the garlic sauce. Super Buzz. Domino.
Whistle while you work. I owed y'all that. Thank you so very much, guys. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And please make sure to fight for a system where we don't have to be tied down by credit and the workers are really the owners of the country, and the people who really run things are the people who are the most disenfranchised in this system, so that they won't have to be disenfranchised anymore. So, guys, I love you guys for being you, and I love you for watching. Forehead kisses. I'll see you guys in the next one. Welcome to Bussies. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Forehead kisses.